republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So next on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes from our meeting on November 18th. Under new business, we discussed the Wenglowski subdivision on Southeast Mountain Road. And the applicant requested that the application be sent to the ZBA, so we made a motion to refer to the ZBA and also to increase the escrow. And then we discussed briefly that planning board secretary and myself met with the Pauling Planning Board Chair, Vice Chair, and Secretary regarding Starkdale Farm. And then we'll be meeting again this Thursday. One or two members of the Planning Board are also invited. If you'd like to join us, that'll be here at Town Hall. And then we adjourn the meeting. Motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Motion made by Member Palmer, second by Member Sador. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. That motion passes 4-0 with 3 absences. Okay. Next on our agenda is full business. We're going to start with Starkdale Farm.
Good evening, Chairman
Evening.
Courtine. My name is Jennifer Gray from the law firm of Keene and Bean, here representing Starkdale Farms application. Also with me tonight is Sarah Yeagle from BFJ Planning and Adam Thyberg from Insight Engineering. We were last before your board on October 21st, and at that time the Planning Board referred the proposed legislation for the project to the Zoning Update Committee. Since then, we did make a submission to the board. We submitted a response to the AKRF comments that we received in October, and also a draft SECRA scoping document. We also, since that time, submitted a letter to the Zoning Update Committee and copied the Planning Board on that letter. Tonight, I just want to address 2 items. One, the zoning, and 2, the draft SECRA scoping document that we submitted to you. We understand that the Zoning Update Committee, with respect to the zoning, did meet on November 20th. We were not in attendance when we scheduled to be on this agenda. I think we were hopeful that we'd have some preliminary comments back from the Zoning Update Committee, but we understand that no feedback has been provided yet. We are hoping that'll occur soon so we can address the committee's comments and present a revised local law for your consideration and ultimately the town board's consideration. As we mentioned in October, we're happy to adjust the proposed legislation to address town's comments, whether it's moving away from the floating zone concept to more of a traditional district, fine-tuning the dimensional requirements, adding definitions. We're happy to address all of those items. None of them are insurmountable or contrary to the objectives of the applicant for the project. So we're happy to work with the town with that. With respect to the scoping document, so we provided the board with a draft SECRA scoping document. We understand this is maybe a little bit out of order since there's no lead agency that's been established yet.
Sure.
However, given sort of the interim period we have here while the zoning is being reviewed, we thought it might be a good idea because of the scope of the project and the length of the scoping document to provide that to you as soon as possible so you can start reviewing it and have plenty of time to do that review and provide any comments. We did want to mention we are aware that technically under the SECRA regulations, a draft scoping document becomes the final scoping document if the lead agency doesn't adopt a final scope within 60 days of the draft being submitted. We do not, under any circumstances, consider this board or any other board subject to that 60-day time period right now. Obviously, there's been no lead
Well, for no other
agency
reason, there's been
established.
no lead agency determination. so
Exactly,
there's no
exactly. So
timeline
we
has
just wanted to
started.
make that clear.
Okay.
We don't consider you to be under any sort of time clock right now with respect to the scoping document. So tonight, really what we're looking to achieve is to receive any further comments that the board may have, or that AKRF or your town engineer, town attorney may have on the proposed local law, or any preliminary comments you may have on the scoping document. Otherwise, we look forward to hearing from the zoning update committee when they have comments for us.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'll get started. I really just took your writing of a scope, draft scope as, that your clients are taking this seriously. This isn't just some kind of like, oh, we'd like to do something or not.
Right.
So, I obviously money went into this. But as you stated, I would agree, it's a bit out of order to do that at this time. So I'm not going to really have any further comment on the draft scope at this time, because we may or may not be the lead agency. It may be, inappropriate to start commenting on a draft scope when we're not lead agency. So I don't want to. I'm sure you can find a cliche for that with a cart and a horse. But and then on the zoning, I know the zoning update committee did meet. I know. Our secretary is a member of the committee, not the spokesperson for the committee, but and again, just so everyone's clear, it's a advisory committee to the town board. It's not open to the public. It's like if the the county executive wanted to have some kind of advisory board on something, it may or may not be have some kind of public face to it, or the governor or the president or anything like that. So I look forward to hearing officially what they think. I guess to give you just my input on the zoning, I think what you're proposing is very specific to your property. Best I can figure out, it might only apply to one or two other properties in the town. It would make sense to me that instead of just county roads, it's county and state roads. Not town roads, because then there might be too much traffic on a town road. The acreage may be too much, again, not up to me at this time. But, I think there might be an opportunity to just look at the existing zoning that we have that's been adopted the last, say, 15 years or so, and maybe just that needs to be amended. And, maybe that's what the zoning update committee recommends. Again, it's all just a giant recommendation to the town board, and they can say, wow, this is great, or this was a big waste of time, or probably not that, but
We certainly hope not.
hopefully not. So with that, I don't have any other comments or questions at this time. Member Roman?
No, thank you.
Okay. Member Palm?
None at this time.
Okay. Member Sador?
Not right now.
Thank you. Whoever would like to go first.
I'll just say, we don't have any new comments on the zoning. We
Right.
did provide the board with some comments on the version that was submitted previously, and we are awaiting feedback from the town. And with the scope, it is premature at this time to offer comments, because if the zoning changes significantly, or we need to start considering other parcels of land which might be subject to the zoning, then we might need to broaden the scope. So-
We're not the lead agency.
Or we're not the lead agency, but we can still comment on it if we're not the lead agency.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Victoria. I was going to mention that even if you don't end up being the lead agency,
No, I know
you
we can
still have an
comment on it.
opportunity
It
to
seems
comment. And
weird to
yeah.
comment on it before anyone.
But we will go through it and start putting together some comments.
Yeah, I echo that. We intend to go through that and have all our technical colleagues at AKRF go through their pieces of it and provide comment. It's just, I think the zoning question is pretty important, whether or not this is going to be a site-specific type of local law, or if it's going to have broader implications that would require the scope to be expanded to cover other possible scenarios. Even if it's qualitatively, that's usually done when there's a zoning change that affects more than just the project site. So that's all up in the air. I thought I thought we were going to have someone represent the board, the committee and speak tonight, but if they're not ready and it's going to be in writing, then we'll just wait to see that when it's ready. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else at this point?
All right. Any other?
And no comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Members of the planning board, having heard from our consultants, anybody have any further comments or questions at this time? No? Okay.
I guess I would just ask, do we know, and maybe Marilyn, you can address this, do we know when the next meeting of the zoning update committee will be?
Right now, I am putting together a memo to be sent to you
Oh, great.
from comments or questions, really, because we need some things clarified. The next meeting will be in January.
Okay.
We're taking off December.
So,
We can absorb.
so will we have an opportunity to respond to that memo in time for your January meeting then? So
Right.
that,
And then when the chair and the committee feels it's time for you to come to our meeting, we will invite you.
okay,
Okay.
okay. And you meet the third Wednesday, is that right? The third Wednesday of the month typically?
Yeah, right now, I think it's 20th, maybe?
Yeah.
Somewhere around that. It's usually the third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday is the 15th.
15th, because January 1st is a Wednesday.
I'm not sure.
The third Wednesday will be the 15th.
Then it's the 15th.
Okay. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Next, we have Wingdale Solar. Good evening.
How are you, folks?
Good, how are you?
My name is Rob Quayrolo. I'm here with RIC Energy. Accompanying me is Bill and Caitlin from Wendell Companies, who is handling the engineering design and some of the technical components of our application. Just a bit of a backstory regarding the project history. This application was before the board in March of 2022. I believe Chris Ross was my colleague who was leading the efforts at that time, so you were speaking primarily with him. He's still with the company and a good source of historical knowledge, but I'll be the primary point of contact moving forward. During our application and planning board review, the town had entered a moratorium to revise their solar zoning regulations. At that point, RIC maintained its application in front of the board, but wanted to take a bit of time to essentially get back to the drawing board, account for these new regulations, and see how we could revise our proposed site plan to accommodate these new laws. During those efforts, we actually located only one other potential site that adhered to all regulations. It was Wingdale Materials, LLC. It's, I believe, located off of Pleasant Ridge Road. Other than that, we were unable to locate any other sites that were viable for opportunities that we're looking to explore. So that generally brings us to today and our current project. If you want, could we potentially throw this up on the back of the board? Just so we can- I would imagine most of you folks have probably spun through a majority of these application materials, but I know there's a lot of them, so I'll give the, I would say, elevator pitch, high-level overview. The site is located along State Route 55 in Wingdale, New York. Its approximate location is 6435 State Route 55. I would say the best frame of reference is about a quarter mile north of the Dunkin' Donuts and Mobile in town. The closest aspect of the proposed array is 600 feet from Route 55. The parcel size is 48.28 acres. Thank you for bringing up this visual. That's really nice. It falls within the RU zone. Our setbacks, both required and what's being proposed, are summarized within sheet C201 of our site plan. Instead of just running through it, I figure that would probably
I'm
be.
trying to bring up the application. It's just 496 pages and 100-something megabytes. It's still loading.
Sure.
How to just go
There
into
should
So
be
just
a
individual.
Yeah, so which appendix would you recommend I open?
The civil set, right?
Appendix F would likely have a good majority of
Okay.
some relevant information in there.
Maybe just stop trying to open this.
Sure. And I can definitely kind of walk through the set a bit. So this is the existing conditions. This is essentially a survey that's brought into our site plan set. It shows you the contours on site, abutting property owners, wetlands, vegetation, tree lines. That's high level overview, kind of just what's existing on site as is. If you go to our next sheet. So this is the site preparation plan. I'll actually hand this over to Caitlin and Bill to describe what's going on this particular sheet a bit more.
Bill Lanterline, Wendell Companies. This is our site prep plan. Not only would this be preparation for construction, but also our erosion and sediment controls. All the temporary measures that would be put in place before construction starts in order to make sure that the site doesn't let sediment leave the site according to our stormwater permitting requirements. The light gray hatch that you're seeing across the majority of this is actually tree clearing area, which you can see from the symbol legend towards the bottom is a little over 12 acres worth of tree clearing that we're proposing.
Okay. Anything further on this? Or?
I think we could. So this is a soil map of the site. This is a requirement of the regulations, so that's incorporated there. If there's any questions regarding that, I'd be happy to answer or pass it along, but.
Okay.
So this is kind of where the meat and potatoes lie. This is the proposed site plan. It's a 4.3 megawatt AC project. The limit of disturbance in total is 16.51 acres. We're entering the site, as I mentioned, from State Route 55. We're currently coordinating with New York State DOT regarding the proposed entrance and providing them the supplemental materials to get the required permit. We're accessing the site using a pervious drive design, which is approved by DEC. And within that, once we get to the site area itself, the site will be fenced off with an 8-foot high tensile wildlife-friendly fence. And then we have our equipment enclosed within that area. So just for reference, to give folks an idea of like the actual size of our project, right? So our parcel is 48.28 acres. The combined limit of disturbance, as I mentioned, is 6.51 acres. Of that, our fenced-in footprint is 14.64 acres, and then the actual array is 10.93 acres, which is essentially 23% of the lot.
Okay. When you said 6, you meant 16?
Yeah.
You said your
For the limit of disturbance.
Yes.
16.
16.51 acres.
Okay.
Yep. And that accommodates for any electrical, trenching, driveway installation, everything within the array area, tree clearing, equipment pad installation. So that's why that area may be a bit bigger than the actual footprint of the project.
Right.
The maximum allowable height per the zoning regulations is 15 feet. That's currently what we're proposing. And other than that, unless there are questions.
So just, yeah, you have a shared driveway with a house here?
Yep. So that is actually a shared access, which is fully within the subject property. The two neighboring residences that live off of that shared driveway have an easement. The reason behind this design, and Bill or Caitlin, jump in here if I missed that. If you go to the next page, there's actually a bit more detail regarding that. So the reason behind that design is DOT is historically not going to allow a new entrance immediately adjacent to an existing entrance. So we want to try and find a common ground and get the safest way for both construction vehicles to access the site during construction and also personal vehicles to get to their residences.
Have you spoken with the easement holders?
So that is our next step, where there's a lot of stakeholders involved in what seems to be something so straightforward. So we're trying to get initial feeling from the DOT to make sure that this is feasible from their perspective, which we believe it is. Once that happens, we'll also be discussing with our subject landowner and then the neighboring landowners. So our landowner is aware, but we don't want to jump the gun a bit before we have kind of some inclination of whether this is going to be feasible or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Further here? Next page. Did you want to go to the next page?
Yeah, that'd be great. Sorry. This is our grading and drainage plan. Again, I'll pass this over to Bill, who can probably speak to it in greater detail than myself.
So the idea on the majority of the solar sites that we design is to try to keep as much of the existing ground, the existing grade, the existing slopes of the ground status quo, to keep them as they are. So you'll see that there are very small pockets of proposed grading that are shown throughout the site, because we could go in and grade the whole site, but then we're disturbing so much more land, and we're doing it for no reason at all. So to try and preserve the existing ground and the existing land as much as we can, we'd like to try to do basically pocket grading, where we're just doing the areas that really need to in order for these solar arrays to properly be aligned on the grades on the ground. In terms of stormwater, we've provided a SWIP as well, a stormwater pollution prevention plan that goes along with these plans, that demonstrates that from the stormwater quantity standpoint, our flows are not altering the hydrology of the ground. So the amount of runoff that is created from rainfall on the site is plus or minus generally the same as the existing conditions.
Okay. So water that falls on the site, I mean, generally downhill is going to be to the east?
Mhm.
Okay. So is the driveway doubling as a way for the water to come off the hill, or?
The water is not doubling as that, because that would be double dipping according to design standards. What that road does is it eliminates the amount of impervious surfaces that we have to put in for access to the site. So really, it's purely replacing an asphalt road or a compacted dirt and gravel road. Bless you.
Thank you.
So it does not act as its own practice. The only areas that would require its own water quality practice would be the new transformer pads. And those transformer pads are addressed by a filter strip for each one, which is a green infrastructure practice according to NISDEC's stormwater design manual.
Okay, so your expectation is the water that falls on the panels will just hit the ground and go in?
It hits the ground and go in. Now, that being said, there are diffusers on the ground. Every so often, according to, they're separated based on the slope, which is guidance from NISDEC. There are level spreaders that are put into the ground, which are basically stone diaphragms that you cut into the ground and fill with stone. That way, you're preventing channelization, you're preventing rilling and erosion on the ground. All that water that's coming off of those panels would make its way into one of those level spreaders where it can then fill up and turn into sheet flow and continue as it would without the project being here.
Okay. And was this it? And you're saying the soil composition is conducive to just water going into the ground and not collecting on the surface?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yes, some of the soils would be considered D soils, which tend to hold water. But they're also, a lot of them are farmland soils. Actually, I think our entire site is sitting on farmland soils, which generally take in the water as well.
Right. I mean, that would make sense. There's a large field here. The trees are
Right.
somewhat scrubby. Was probably, if we went back in the historic aerials, might have also just been part of a larger field. So.
Yeah, and I believe a majority of the site from the USDA web soil survey is indicating that there is gravel on site, so should be fairly permeable soils.
Okay. All right. Anything further on this page here?
Nope.
Okay.
I think we can move to the next. This is, I would say, more of a technical page showing the elevation profile of the proposed roadway. Shows our existing grade and proposed grade. As you can see, there's very limited micrograding required for access road installation.
Now, when we did our site walk, it was rather wet where the wetland is draining south. Do you need to do anything with regard to that? I'm guessing that would be probably this.
I would have to take a deeper look. Regarding the crossing, I believe it's an intermittent stream.
Right.
I don't believe that we have a culvert proposed at this time.
We don't have a culvert proposed at this time because if you'll notice on that profile, you can see that the proposed road is at existing grade. And right now, with it being an intermittent stream, the worry of washout or any kind of flooding issue occurring doesn't seem prevalent. If that's something that the board would like us to look into, we're more than happy to look into that as well.
Right. I
Take a
think
second
one of the
look at it.
concerns would be that, fires do happen at solar panel locations. Fire trucks are very heavy. We wouldn't want it to be just a situation where the ground's very soft and it can sink in. So.
Understood.
Okay. All right, so this is the grade of the roadway.
Yep. No further details, I think, on this page.
Okay.
is, I believe, our landscape plan. Yes.
Okay.
Landscape-wise, we are not necessarily prescribing any screening. Because of our current location with this site, there is a lot of natural screening that's already provided here. The site is kind of tucked away where visual screenings are not expected to really be visual or a nuisance to the surrounding adjacent properties.
And I do believe members of the planning board back in 2022 did perform a site walk at that time. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how many members who were on the board then are still here now.
I was on the site walk.
I
You were on
was.
the site walk. Member Palmer, you were not on the planning board at the time.
I live there, though.
What? You were.
I wasn't on the
You-
sidewalk.
yeah, you weren't.
It's in my backyard.
Yeah, that's right. You live nearby. Sure. And member Sidor, I don't remember if you were there. You were. Okay.
I wasn't on the board.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would make sense to have another site walk
Okay.
at some point.
Yeah,
you
we can certainly schedule that. I think there is a benefit to getting boots on the ground. Yeah, not to speak on the board's behalf, from my understanding, I think visual concerns of immediately adjacent areas were fairly limited, given the existing vegetation and contours on site. But
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
It didn't seem as though from Route 55 you would really be able to see much of anything. You see this driveway, but
right.
and then just because of the way it's perched on top of the hill, I would agree. The immediate surrounding areas, I don't think much would be seen. Yeah, we did at the time identify a potential visual impact from the lookout point at the top of Boyce Park. But I mean, it overlooks all of Wingdale, so anything anyone does, you'd see it. So, it's something we'd have to discuss. But
Right, and
Yeah.
that not to get too far ahead of ourselves. I believe that was included in the
Yes.
comment letter as well.
Yep.
And we are aware of that, despite it being just about a mile away. We do anticipate that the project would be visible from there.
Sure.
We can certainly provide, I think, photo simulations if that's something that you feel would be most beneficial to assess. Right now, we don't have anything from that vantage point, but
Right.
we'd
No,
be
it's-
happy to address
yeah.
any concerns from that area.
Did we discuss? There's a point along the Appalachian Trail that might also, just while you're looking at it.
Sure.
It's definitely going to come up.
Yeah, from this point here on the Appalachian Trail. Again, you could see a lot of Wingdale from there. So it's possible that, that'll come up.
All right.
Because let's see, that's here in your, hold on.
Just
Right,
south
you're this
of
field.
Mercer. Yep.
Yeah, so so you're, where's the mark? Yeah, you're the field here, and the Appalachian Trail comes back into New York over here, and then, again, you can see a lot of kind of the east half of Wingdale from there. So,
Just taking notes.
but yeah, I mean, there could be
there.
some trees and rocks in the way, and just can't happen to see where your site is. Or something.
Sure.
There's just something else that comes up. Because that was looked at with Harlem Valley Homestead, which was over
Right
here.
there.
Well, right on, it's on Google Maps, right here. So they're much closer, or they're more directly south.
Understood.
So again, it's just another possible visual impact to consider, look at.
All right.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything else on this.
There was something here. The 5s and the 6s across the map, is that referencing back to the landscape notes? Landscape note 5 and 6?
Yeah.
Pollinator seed mix and.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's,
Rick and
that's what I thought. I
Wendell-
just didn't want to presume that. I wanted you to state it. So.
Rick and Wendell generally try to be inclusive of pollinators when we do these projects. So While we understand that it may not be a great idea to put a pollinator directly underneath the panels, the surrounding areas around the panels are to be seeded with pollinator mix.
Okay. I know that was discussed when this and another project first came up, and I think is, just that whole discussion. So, okay. Anything further on this one? No? Okay.
Nope.
Page 10. So we're just looking at the panels.
Yeah, these are our detail pages throughout the site plan. There will be callouts that reference these. Just provides a little bit more information, schematics, different views of the actual items being proposed. So if there's any particular questions, we'd be happy to answer. But
Are the spacings of the panels from each other based on the topography? Like if it's flatter, they are farther apart, if it's whatever.
So the spacing throughout the array is going to be consistent,
Okay.
Regardless of the topography. And the spacing is driven by regulations for New York State DEC, which amended their regulations from Maryland, requiring stormwater treatment. So the spacing has to be greater to or equal than the modules when they are in like a flat tilt and
Okay.
plan view. So that's largely what drives that on this site.
Okay.
That's just some further information
Fencing,
regarding
like
the
we keep out.
fence, gates.
The height of the proposed fence is
8 feet, I believe.
And then the last one is just, this is the,
Pervious
Road.
road construction.
gotcha. Okay.
At this point in time, do we want to kind of jump into the comment letter that was circulated? I know it was pretty
Well,
recent and it's
Yeah, we'll
condensed
get-
with the holiday
Yeah,
schedule.
we'll get to that in a
Yeah,
moment.
we'll get the highlights, okay.
So you cannot do this project as it is proposed, given the zoning that the town has. If you could
Correct.
just go through that briefly?
Yep. So there, it is our understanding, and I believe AKRF had also confirmed our understanding as well within their comment letter. There are 2 variances that we would be applying for through the ZBA. One is in regards to the 50-acre minimum site requirement. As previously stated, our parcel is 48.28 acres, so we would be applying for an area variance. The other variance we would be applying for is in respect to the required setbacks. We are providing 300-foot setbacks to the south, as well as other lot lines. I'd have to look back through the site plan. But there are certain setbacks where we are proposing below the 300-foot requirement. There is language within the law that allows the board to grant a waiver, I believe up to 25%, correct me if I'm
Yes.
wrong. We are beyond that 25% threshold, so the request would ultimately go before the ZBA as well for a use variant or area variance as well.
Right.
So those are the 2 items that we are aware of at this time from our side.
Right, so I see it there.
Yep. So there from the south, we do meet it, I believe. The west, we should have call outs on all sides of the array that will highlight that. And I give credit to whoever is driving the screen.
That's
Gives me nightmares doing that live time.
So here, over here.
Yep. So from the west, we are also adhering to that. To the north, we are at 170 feet to the modules.
170, 183, 170. Okay.
And then from
So we get 300 feet, but we could, do up to 25, knock off 25% of that, so 225.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, you could propose a project that had 225-foot setbacks. You would say what to that?
We can consider it, and I will say we have looked into it. It does become a question of financial viability to a
Right.
certain point.
Sure.
As of course the buildable footprint decreases,
Right.
our DC capacity, which is essentially the amount of modules that can fit on the site, decreases. The amount of DC capacity comes down, our AC capacity comes down, and that is
Right.
ultimately the basis behind projects gain value.
So just so we're clear about the setbacks, if you had a square parcel that was 610 feet by 610 feet, given our zoning, you could fit a 10-foot by 10-foot panel in the middle, or ask for the variance to be 225 all the way around, and then make a bigger piece.
Yeah, so it's like residential properties too. The shape of your parcel does have a lot to do with it.
Right.
You of course want that beautiful square parcel. It gives you a nice lawn.
Yes, you have a very
big
odd-shaped
space.
parcel. I'll give you that.
Yeah, we have a bit of a zigzag to ours, so it makes
I mean,
it a little bit difficult.
The question may
squeeze in.
come up that, I mean, these parcels have no structures on them. Were these landowners approached to help you with either the acreage or the setbacks?
So we have looked into that as well as an option. It does become quite difficult having a single project that's co-located on multiple parcels that are ultimately owned by different landowners. If it was site control through one landowner,
Right.
the legality of it is a bit more straightforward. The terms and agreements are pretty nuanced, and when you're starting that with multiple landowners, it does get to become quite difficult. We also considered that entering into a budding parcel would not necessarily address the setback regulations that we are facing if
Sure.
it is not, again, you don't have like a good neighbor clause essentially, so we would we would have to adhere to the same regulations that we're facing on those parcels as well.
Unless you did a lot line alteration.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you have not approached the landowners here?
We have not, to my knowledge,
And
no.
from what it sounds like, you're not purchasing the property from Charlotte Street Associates. You're having some kind of
We
50, 100-year lease or whatever you have.
yeah, we have a
Whatever.
lease structured and in place with them.
All right. Okay. That's it for me for questions, comments. Member Palmer?
Nothing.
Member Sador?
Nope.
Member Rahman? Okay. Would like to, should Engineer Berger and Attorney Polidoro go before your memo?
Sure.
Engineer
I wasn't
Berger?
going to go through all of mine either. I was going to kind of hit the highlights.
Engineer
'cause-
Berger, do you want to?
Yeah, just a few comments. I want the board to understand the concept of what DEC is allowed here for stormwater, which is unique in New York State to any other post-developed project. It basically essentially ignores the fact that there are going to be panels.
Right.
Whether both for stormwater reduction, stormwater quality treatment, and for pre-post. The DEC guidelines, which they're following 100%, do allow for this to go through, and they also allow a 5% increase in stormwater peak for solar farms, which is not allowed for any commercial project.
Okay.
As in this site, both the 1-year and the 10-year storm are increased. The 1-year storm increases by 2.45% by their calculations. I'm also want to look at the SWIP a little bit deeper because I'm concerned over some of the assumptions that the CN numbers will increase by only 1 when we take away all the forest, and simply because we put grass on the ground
Right.
underneath of all these panels, there will be an increase of 1 CN number, which I'm having trouble with. Also, stormwater that drains onto a 10% to 20% slope,
Right.
regardless of whether it's gravel or grass or meadow, does not drain into the ground as fast as stormwater going through trees. The trees will absorb it, block it, slow it down when it hits the ground, as we all have been underneath of trees during storms, and the ground barely sees it. But looking at our only solar farm that we have here in Dover,
Right.
which I have been on extensively,
Yep.
I anecdotally come to the conclusion, I disagree with DEC, that the stormwater does increase when panels go, as we've seen by the additional stormwater that comes down to Route 22 from our solar farm. We are a non-MS4,
Right.
but we do have a Chapter 65, which is separate too, not following MS4 or DEC guidelines, which provide for the protection of off-site drainage. So I want to look at that a little bit further before I give my final comments, but I wanted to bring to the board's attention, I'm sure you've heard me say this before when we talked about this, that the existence of these panels has more of a adverse effect on the site that is illustrated within the guidelines of the documents provided, even though the documents do follow DEC guidelines 100%.
Right. And potentially as a concern for offsite.
Yes.
Really, yeah. I mean, because, relatively speaking, the topo lines are, a lot closer on the western part of the property here. And then also, again, just looking at how it just all is coming down to this wetland.
Yeah.
I mean, if we took a site walk now, it wouldn't seem like a problem because we're maybe in a drought.
Yes.
Pretty bad.
Coming out of a drought or something. So,
I mean, the proposal.
yeah, it's a concern, and I think our engineer is in part, he said anecdotal, but it's informed by something we have in town that,
Sure,
So-
sure.
The proposal to use level spreaders is almost indicator that they also don't disagree with me, because if the stormwater were to drain directly into the ground under each panel, between each panel, there would be no need for level spreaders to catch water and keep it from forming rills and other, a rill is nothing more than a gutter that we see.
Right.
It's a fancy word for trenches and gutters that we see, cutting through the ground.
Right.
If all the water could go into the, right under each panel, there'd be no need for level spreaders or anything like that. The level spreaders are a perfect mechanism to assist, but throughout this design, they're placed randomly and not within a detailed design methodology, and it's not expressly designed within their report, but placed within it in areas that they probably feel will cause problems.
Right.
And again, looking at what we had to deal with over on the Route 22 one, the level spreaders there did work, but ultimately, using our Chapter 65 bond and not releasing it after the project was done, the building inspector and myself were able to get additional stormwater installed along the downhill side to accommodate the additional flow that came off the site.
Right.
But that was using our bond and our Chapter 65, and we'll learn some things there that maybe we need to see some more practices installed during construction and not wait until at the end. So I'll be providing those review on my before the next meeting.
Okay. Great.
If we could provide some follow-up context, Bill, you can jump in and speak to it, and I'll maybe follow up as well.
I was on board with everything you were saying until we started talking about the level spreaders there at the end. I don't think that it is appropriate to say that they are placed in a random manner. Are you aware that the DEC recently came out with a new revised statement regarding solar designs?
Very much so.
So
I
then
do-
you're
I do the
aware.
same work that you do.
So then you're aware that anything over 8% would have to have a level spreader or similar design installed.
Oh, yeah, I don't see a design within your report that shows that.
That shows
Where the placement based on where all that is and where
it's
all the
because
designs are.
it's based on the topography of the site.
I know, so if I'm not going out there as a town engineer to inspect where they're supposed to go, how am I supposed to conclude that they were built properly?
You could measure them off the plan because they're supposed to be a certain distance
So
away.
that's my job to do that?
It's not my job to do that for you.
I think it is.
I
I'll
agree to
respond-
disagree. That's
I'll
fine.
respond to the board who I work
That-
for.
All right, so
Perfectly
for all
fine.
the non-engineers in the room, could you show us on the, sir, could you show us where the level spreaders are? We have a, you could use this laser pointer if you want.
They're zigzags, so if you see them.
I think we need to go to the
Yeah, which page should I be?
Go back one page.
grading and
Two
drainage.
pages, page 7?
Yeah, so you'll see.
These are the zigzags here.
Zigzags.
Okay.
Those are placed on, specifically on contours because they should be placed on a level grade. That's the whole idea of a level spreader, is that it will create a sheet flow across a level grade. So they're placed on contours, and the contours are based on the topography of the site, how far those contours are from each other. There are standards based on that slope as to where they would be placed. So at anything between like 8 and 10%, I can't remember exactly what the distance is. Maybe it's 75 or it's 100 feet. I can't remember.
Right.
But so there are standard separations for them.
Okay, so for example, as I'm just looking at this now, so the contour number 507 here has the start of a level spreader, which zigzags its way up here,
Correct. It's
and
following the contour.
it should go to 507 up here. Where here's 505, so presumably 507 is
Right. It
one of
stops.
these, yeah.
It stops before the road. It's
Okay.
only under the panels.
I
It's
see.
only treating the panels.
So the practice will generally follow the contours. They'll be installed parallel, which in theory means it'll be perpendicular to the flow of water, right? Water wants to go
Mhm.
downhill.
Yep.
And there's a couple points I'd like to iterate, right? So our stormwater design, regardless of preferences, is
Sorry.
adhering to the New York State DEC regulations, and that is ultimately, as an applicant, I am asking an engineer to stamp these things.
Mhm.
I can't allow my feelings towards what practices I feel are best or from my view of past projects, control what is permissible in New York State through DEC. When we submit our SWIP, it is reviewed by DEC. We have to get our general stormwater permit. That is through DEC.
To be clear, though, those are minimum standards that you have to meet. That doesn't mean that we can't ask you to go beyond that in your design.
Absolutely right.
That's
just-
yeah, that is true, but you know, I don't want to say we can't, you know, have someone reinvent the wheel and go down this path, and then ultimately DEC says, hey, we don't recognize this practice, and we're not really sure we can get behind this. We don't have the case studies or ideas. So I do want to say these are approved practices. We are open to additional recommendations. We'll certainly hear them out, consider implementing them, and try and model it to see how it shakes out. Regarding past projects, I think it is crucial for everyone, obviously, to learn from past experiences. I do want to also highlight this is a different applicant, different design, different site, different ground cover, different surrounding areas. If you could actually pull up the ortho, I don't know if you have the tax map parcel viewer still
Oh, yeah.
available to you. So, I mean, I just want to consider where our slope is going, and then when we are accounting for this big picture, what our overall concerns are. So,
Is there
where our development is in relation to the parcel
You hit the
boundary.
terrain, you'll see the contour a little more if you hit the terrain right
Yeah.
there.
And then, right, so what's abutting it?
What's abutting it? Well, then,
Houses.
So,
yeah, this-
and the
Draining
school.
toward 55, basically.
much of the water goes down to
Mm-hmm.
houses here, this wetland, house.
Mhm.
think this is a high point.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So it has potential to flood out the neighbors.
A lot of houses right there.
It's relatively flat here, so you wouldn't expect much water to flow north.
And then
You would expect water from this part of the parcel to flow west, and from here to flow east, east, east. There is a, as you had from your road grade, there's a, bit of a channel that's been formed by the wetland here.
Sure.
But again, then the concern is where that water is flowing down towards the Astor School, so.
Right, so, yeah, I mean, our drainage areas, I think we're exhibiting a 2% increase in our stormwater events, which is,
Right.
I would dare to say nominal, but it's
Right, I think the
within
concern that
regulations.
our community, a lot of communities have seen recently is just, we're having 100-year storms every 5 to 10 years, so.
Sure, and I believe that is accounted for in our stormwater calculations as well. So we are looking at that. We do understand the anomalies.
Yeah, no one's saying
in
you're
stormwater.
not. It's just something that we need to keep in the forefront, so.
Yeah.
With these level spreaders, am I saying, yeah, is it, so just so I'm clear, is it that the ground is being leveled, or is there a physical thing that is stopping the water to then allow it to go into the ground?
It's a cutout.
You have to be at the microphone, otherwise it won't pick up the sound.
It's a cutout. There's actually a cross-sectional detail of it on, I believe it's up on this screen, page.
On this page?
Yeah, if you zoom out so we can,
I'll zoom out.
scroll up. There you
I
go.
see.
Yeah, so as the water is going downhill, it comes off of some of these panels, it'll go downhill, and then it'll fall into one of these stone trenches, essentially, which then the water can rise through the stone voids at a level playing field, and then it breaches the bottom end of that cutout and will flow,
Right.
sheet flow, basically.
And they're 1 foot wide by 1 foot tall, and
Yeah, it's basically just meant for the water to fall into it, fill up, and come out.
who goes and like clears all the leaves out of it every, periodically to make sure
That
it
should
actually
be,
works?
that should be part of the maintenance plan.
Okay.
And it should also be
Or
noted.
the grass clippings, or, anything.
Right. And it should also be noted that these level spreaders, because from a construction standpoint, from a constructability standpoint, it doesn't make sense to put them in after the panels have been put in. So what would happen is these would be installed before the panels are put in,
Right.
and then they would be protected so that during construction, we're not filling up all those voids in that stone with a bunch of sediment.
Right. That would make sense.
So we're trying to protect them during construction as well.
Okay.
And then just the one last thing on stormwater. I know it's a strange concept, right? DEC thinks of the array, which is our overall footprint of,
Right.
of the modules, as a pervious surface, right? And you think that can't be.
Right, they only consider the post as the impervious part, which doesn't.
Correct.
Right, and
Actually,
and the
makes
reasoning behind that, right, is, we have our modules, they're not pervious, things hit them, it doesn't soak through the module and go to the ground. But as they tilt, it runs off, and the space underneath this row is still permeable soil. We're not changing the soil conditions. And the next module and the one on this side. So yes, I understand the material itself is pervious, but the ground underneath, if it is pervious before installation, will remain a pervious surface. Is not the same idea as putting, a house or a parking lot or something that is covering the ground and preventing.
Right, the concern, though, is that you're collecting the water in one line, and it's not allowing any of the water to be collected underneath the panel.
Right.
That's why it's more than the post, and it's less than the house.
Right.
It's somewhere in between. The EC has it wrong. I don't know, I'll leave that to the engineers, I guess, to
How do you-
slap each other with, so.
How do you prevent the soil from getting compacted from all the site work so that it still remains very pervious?
Sure. So we're typically utilizing tracked vehicles in the kind of inter-row spaces. That is where you will see some of the soil disturbance. We I will say very conservatively, define our entire array area as disturbance. 10 years ago when these projects were going in, the only places that were being considered disturbance were the roadway and the equipment
And the
pads.
posts, right.
Given that there was machines turning at the end of rows and tearing things up, I think folks kind of got keyed into that, and we do kind of consider the overall array area as disturbance. If there is significant compaction, there are methodologies to kind of rip and decompact. But again, it's covered in that disturbance area, so we would have the permitted right to do that within the limit of disturbance that we have proposed. So.
Okay. Engineer Berger, anything further at this time?
I just want to remind the board that we do have a Chapter 65 here, which is separate from the MS4. We are not an MS4. We're not obligated to follow theirs. That's a DEC permit, not our permit. And the level spreader they presided there is specifically designed for solar farms. If this was a level spreader designed for a commercial site, it would have a berm on the downhill side. It would be 1.5 feet deep, and it would have an under drain underneath of it.
Okay.
So it's not going to have the same effect as a standard level spreader. It's more like a French drain. When you put that on 10 to 15% slope, it's my experience of 40 years of doing this, that stormwater flowing down across a 15 or 10% slope would have very little chance of falling into that trench unless it was at least 3 to 4 feet wide. A 12-inch wide, 1 foot wide trench will have very little effect of allowing the water, especially on a storm event where you're getting 3 to 4 inches of rain coming down, which is what we get more often. Our storm events are more not 24 hours long soaking, but periods of large downfall to periods in between where there's not. And that water coming down, splashing off the top of the panels at a high velocity. And that's what's going to happen when the stormwater hits it and slides down. It will increase the velocity of the water, and it will slide past most of these trenches, and they will become ineffective. And that's our experience in it. Again, I'll provide a report to the board
Okay.
on some additional practices I think we're going to need to see, so we don't experience the same things we had to correct for at the last solar farm that we had here.
But I think most people would understand that an inch over 24 hours and an inch over 4 hours, very different storms and how that
Sure.
water may
Sure.
or may not be infiltrating into the ground.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I certainly don't disagree, but again, I do want to look at it from a big picture practical standpoint. If the area right now is not subject to severe flooding, right? You guys probably know the area better than any of us. If there's not frequent flooding events in the area and the SWIP calculations are proving that there's not a substantial increase to runoff, I would just want to say, would it make sense that we would have to adhere to the potential increased practices if we're showing a minimal increase to runoff on a site where there's not existing issues? But we can address the comments as they come in and
just-
see what the
We're just
recommendations are.
discussing and educating ourselves as to
Sure.
what you're doing. All right, Attorney Polidoro?
So Mr. Berger is not the only person grappling with the stormwater issues. Some communities have actually adopted their own regulations to redefine the stormwater and how it's calculated because they don't like the way that DEC has allowed them to calculate the stormwater.
Right.
So, I mean, it is a valid concern that the stormwater, even if it meets the DEC's regulations, will result in some more impacts than what we would typically find in a similar calculation.
Right. I mean, municipalities could always be more restrictive, not
Right.
less restrictive.
Correct.
Sure.
So what some communities do is they define the impervious surface area as including the panel, which results in them having to do more stormwater practices. So as far as legal, there are variances that are needed. Because this will be a type 1 action based on the area of disturbance, the planning board usually declares lead agency, sends it to the zoning board, and then the zoning board has to wait until the planning board finishes the seeker review to adopt or grant those variances. Although they can go before the board, they can answer questions, have the hearing. The zoning board can't grant anything until
So we
this
could go
board
through
has
the whole
completed.
project, approve it, and then the zoning board could say, we're not giving the variance.
Yeah, I mean, the risk is on the applicant. This is how it works in New York when there is a coordinated review. I don't think we're at a point where we can start seeker yet. The project's still going to need a few revisions, as Mr. Warner's going to talk you through. But that's something we can consider at a future meeting.
Okay.
And then, just as far as legal, getting a copy of the driveway easement, and, I thought we had something from the applicant from the owner the last time around authorizing you, but you're new consultants, so I just want to make sure that we have the right authorization for everyone to appear on the owner's behalf.
Yeah, we I think we did include a letter of agent from the applicant. I can confirm that was included and provide any supplemental
Appendix
materials.
C.
And I believe that is a requirement of the
So
town
back
of
from-
Dover.
So back from the
regulation.
original March
It's from 2022.
22.
Okay, so there's been no change since then.
No, we could,
You're still Wingdale PV LLC?
correct.
Okay.
We could request an updated signature
No, it's
as
fine, I
well,
just wasn't sure if
No,
the
but-
entities had changed, because I know the engineers have changed, right? No?
Engineers, just me. It's
Just
you're
you,
just
okay.
stuck with
Okay,
me.
so same company, just different,
Just different faces?
right, it was.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
And it's still Wingdale PV LLC,
yep. So that's the applicant. The project is referred to as Wingdale Solar.
and Attorney Polidoro, it's located at 0 Route 55, because it's a piece of property in the middle of other properties, and there's just no address for it, I guess.
I mean, I would probably put a directional location, but
it
the
has
grid number is 5.
It has a grid number, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
All right.
fine.
Fine. Anything further?
I mean, so just before approval, we would want something from Charlotte Street Associates, just saying, like a resolution saying, because I don't know who they are or who David is, just saying, this is a resolution of Charlotte Street Associates authorizing David to sign on our behalf.
Understood. I'm just making quick notes
Yep.
here. And then one question: is it okay if I direct questions to the board's counsel or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So regarding the process of the variance, that's actually something that I wanted to kind of firm up my understanding. So under normal circumstances, the planning board will likely declare intent for lead agency and lead the seeker review process. I know that in order for the ZBA to make a decision regarding the variances, an action will have to be made for seeker. In Dover, is it typical that the project is referred to the ZBA earlier in the life cycle of the project to get like a conditional grant a variance or an indication depending the outcome.
So we can certainly refer it before seeker is completed, so you
Okay.
can start that process. It's not typical that you would get a conditional variance. They generally won't vote until seeker is completed.
Okay.
But, I mean, they'll give you feedback.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, I would be lying if I said that my primary concern wasn't spending a lot of folks' time
Right.
and money going through the process without the likelihood of a variance going through. I also, though, don't want to waste all of your folks' time sitting and sifting through these materials if the variance probability is low. We certainly acknowledge that as a substantial hurdle to the project. So I would imagine if it is possible and the ZBA is open to that, then we would like to pursue that route. So that way we can begin conversations with them and get maybe some sort of a temperature towards their thoughts on what we are asking for. But
I mean, so you're looking for two variances, and your arguments are.
I think it's actually 3, but
What's the third one?
there's a fencing setback as well that I call out in the comments. I don't know if you were familiar with that one or not.
I do not have that down, but hit me with it. Make this
yeah,
project
so
harder for me.
If you look at 11914G, this is all the new zoning citations. 119-14G B6. Fencing must be 250 feet from the side and rear property lines, and you have it as close as 142 feet on a side property line, which would require a variance. So you have setback for like the project, and then you have setbacks for the fence. There's 2 different setback requirements.
Understood.
So 119, 14,
G,
G,
B6,
B6.
B6.
B, 6.
This is a tier 3 system by definition, so.
So 100 feet from the front property line and 250 feet from
the
any
side.
other property line.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of buried in there, but that's
All
another
right,
reason
so-
why our comment memo was so long is because we went through every single piece of this new law to try to make sure we covered everything, so. So I think it's variances for the solar application, the fencing, and then the acreage, minimum acreage, 50 acres.
So it says 50 acres, you have 48.2. Your argument is, well, we're really close. Okay.
It's pretty good. You got me sold.
And then for you have it the size you have it. If you followed the setbacks, you're saying it just wouldn't be economically viable? Or?
I think it would be difficult. It would be extremely difficult.
Just trying to understand,
Yeah,
just why you propose something that's not allowed. And then,
right,
yeah.
right. We had the thought process from our initial application. We had downsized the footprint of the project a substantial amount. We ideally would be in adherence to all of the regulations. I think we tried to find the best middle ground from our perspective, providing the setbacks where there's neighboring residences, et cetera, buildings to the south, roadways to the west and east, just the north where we thought there was existing screening. So we could potentially push up a little bit more.
And the fencing is really just to keep people away from your solar panels, because it's meant for animals to come and go as they please. But
That's correct.
It's required. Is it required under the code to have a perimeter fence?
I believe it is a requirement of the code. It's also probably
The energy code. is-
Yeah, it's
solar energy systems shall be enclosed by perimeter fencing
yeah,
with logging access gate to prevent unauthorized access and vandalism.
yeah. I think also the electrical code as well.
Yeah.
NEC.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah,
one of your 60.
I'm not going to go through all 60 comments. The reason it's so long is because, like I said, this is a new law that just got adopted earlier this year. this board had an opportunity to review it back when it was drafted, and we provided some feedback at that point. This is the first project to come forward under the new zoning. So I kind of agree that the ZBA taking a look at it earlier is a good idea, just because a lot of people on the ZBA, I think, were also involved in writing the law, or at least one person.
I'm just trying to understand something here, just for this applicant and future applicants. Are these, Attorney Polidoro, are they supposed to, like, read between the lines when they go to the ZBA? Like, I know it's not, you're not the ZBA attorney, and I'm not on the ZBA. I'm just
Right,
trying to
I mean,
understand, like,
it's-
are we going to go through this whole project, and then the ZBA could say no?
Yes, absolutely.
I just- okay.
The risk is on the applicant when they propose something that doesn't meet the code.
Right.
So they can go before the zoning board. The zoning board might give them some initial feedback, like, feels like a really big variance, not sure you've provided enough justification, let's see.
Right.
Or the zoning board could sit silently and not give any feedback
Right.
until after the public hearing and vote. So, they're welcome to go and have that initial discussion and see if they get any good feelings.
Okay.
But
And
Just seems like you're going before the Godfather, and you're just not getting, like, a straight answer.
well, that's,
right.
and I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't know if you can answer it. It might be a question for our attorney. Is the ZBA, are there any restrictions from a legal perspective where they couldn't give a conditional approval? If they feel, you know what, the requests are reasonable, we find that if you get approval from the planning board.
yes, I mean, I would,
Yeah, why
I would
can't they-
never advise on a conditional approval before seeker's completed, because
Right.
if,
Like,
if,
what's the point, what's the purpose of the, it seems like there's a restriction in seeker that'll, or something that'll, doesn't allow them to, so what's going on there?
right, they can't make a decision until seeker's been completed. So if
Right.
this board comes back and says, we think this is going to be a big impact on community character, and it's not going to fit with the zoning restrictions, are going to cause some other issue, then if the zoning board had said no problem, now they have to consider the planning board's issues and go back and redo their findings. So I'd say it's not appropriate.
Okay.
But I don't represent the zoning board. I just wouldn't find it appropriate.
Yeah, no, I don't want to ask something that's like unfair of them or puts them in a not a great spot. So
No, and they also have a great attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, so.
good.
Yeah. So just the
Okay.
fact that there was a moratorium, and then there was just all this work that went into the new zoning, and then this is the first project to come back for it, to immediately have variances. I think that's,
Well-
again, it's important to
I don't know that the button actually mutes your mic. What? I think it looks like you're trying to mute the mic. I don't think it actually does that. I don't think
well,
it
it's an area variance according
Just
to
move the mic
code,
away
so
from your mouth.
It would. Does the law actually say ZBA in it? I thought it's applied. No.
You can see how new it is.
So we were, the question I was having, and forgive me, I did take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, well, half a Wednesday, was whether the zoning board could even issue a variance from this chapter, since it's not in the zoning code. So
I thought there was.
that is something
Huh.
that we should just confirm.
That's interesting.
I thought there was language about all other parts of the code.
Well, so hold on. Let's take a step back here for a second. Sorry, this
That's a good
is,
question.
you're in the middle of.
Yeah.
All right, so say I want to do some peddling and soliciting. I'm not allowed to do that. What's my recourse?
You go to the town board and ask them to change the law.
Okay.
Zoning board has no authority over.
Say I want to do
peddling.
a game of chance, and someone says, or it says I'm not allowed to. My recourse is go to the town board and.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, let's read this more carefully, but
Right, it's not part of the zoning.
it's not in the zoning law, and
But
if
I mean,
you,
it is zoning. It's just not in the zoning. Does the ZBA only have authority over
so if you go
any
to,
town's chapter?
if you go
Whatever.
to
I mean,
one-
every town could have a different number, but any town's zoning chapter?
so a lot of towns put the solar energy under the zoning law,
Sure.
so it's part of the zoning.
Right.
Here it's separate, and so the way Chapter 145 reads is that the zoning board of appeals
Help it-
shall have all the powers and duties.
Yes, we're, just
It's
where are we going?
14559.
59, okay.
Prescribed by law, and this chapter, in connection with appeals to review any order, requirement, decision, interpretation, or determination made by an administrative official charged with the enforcement of this chapter. So it seems limited to chapter 145 unless there was language in the solar energy law specifically granting authority to the zoning.
Or unless
board.
there's something in
You see
section 267
the
of town
purpose and
law.
intent section.
Does it say it there?
I'm looking at the PDF version, but it's the last. Under the purpose and intent, E, it is not intended by this local law to abrogate or impair existing conditions previously made or permits previously issued relating to the use of buildings. Whenever this local law imposes a greater restriction upon the use of buildings or premises than is required by existing provisions of law, ordinance, or regulations, the provisions of this local law shall control.
Yeah.
I mean, under erosion sediment control, variances may be granted by the Town of Dover Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's explicitly written in the Chapter 65 erosion sediment control that they can. Be,
Right.
Okay.
I didn't see it in chapter 119, but I'll have to read it more closely. But, so that's something I think you guys should talk about with your council as well, is whether there's even an opportunity to obtain a variance before you go much
And
further.
you're saying so that the only waiver, even if that's not applicable, then the planning board waiver of 25% is really like the waiver.
Mhm.
In
Would
which
it-
case they're not meeting that either, so.
Correct. After the meeting, would it be possible for me to get your contact information? So
Yeah,
that
sure.
way,
Who's your attorney?
we'll probably be using Young Summer.
Okay, so I know, I mean, they know me,
Okay.
but yes, I'll give you my contact information.
Perfect.
and we
Perfect.
can- we
Perfect.
can
Yeah.
discuss.
That way,
Is
I
it
don't.
Allison or,
Depends. James Moscato.
okay,
Maybe Rob Panache. If it.
I don't know Rob,
Probably
but
not
I've met
permanent.
James, so they
But-
can definitely give me a call.
Okay. Yeah. That way, I don't want to get anyone's legal
I think-
terminology mixed up.
Just look at the screen there. Any person aggrieved by the decision of the planning board on a site plan and/or special permit application pursuant to this chapter may apply to the New York State Supreme Court for review.
Right.
Okay.
So I might go back and pull the adoption documents, because there may have been language in the resolution or in the preamble to the local law, which provides some explanation, the one that was filed with the Department of State.
So it seems like prior to us meeting with the ZBA, we probably want to get this
Yeah.
ironed out first.
Yes, we should do that before everyone spins their wheels.
Sounds good.
Thanks for that one. No, it's fine. We didn't really, yeah, it was a short time frame too to look at this. But again, so the way the memo's organized is we went through every section of what's now chapter 119, and looked at compliance with all the requirements, whether for submission requirements, just general area, bulk requirements, right? That's how it's organized. The procedural section up front, and also it would be good if you were planning to respond to the ones that warrant a response, it would help have the record flow in that way. Because what we like to do with memos like of this length and is have the running tally of like what our original comment, a response, our new comment over time, so that the record's within this document. That's kind of how we work.
I think we could definitely structure that.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but some of them are just statements saying that you're meeting this, you're meeting that.
Acknowledged.
Some are where we're asking for more information. So
Got it.
on the procedural section, it's really it's very similar to the previous project. A lot of the same things apply as far as it's going to need a public hearing. It's a type 1 action based on the size. It's a major project based on the amount of disturbance. A town defined major project. So that's all referenced in there. We talk about the some of the new information out of the law, including the requirement that it has to be referred. Usually, the board refers things to the fire department anyway, but this local law, this new law now in the zoning code or the town code, requires that it be all these solar projects be referred to the fire department. It also requires all these applications to be referred to the county planning department, regardless of if it meets 239M requirements. In this case, it does because it's on a state road, 500 feet. That's one of the new things of the zoning change there. We have recommendations for the referrals that should be included for this. That's comment 18. That's the town board. Due to the host community agreement requirements, there's a pilot mentioned in there as well. DEC, Army Corps of Engineers, due to the wetlands and the crossing that they're proposing for the stream. National Grid, DOT for the entrance, like fire department again, and the school district due to the proximity of the school there. So going through the, as far as the requirements for submission, we outlined what has been submitted, what was missing. One of the big things that was missing, and maybe a site walk would help this out, the tree survey that the code requires now for this, which is, it's listed under 119.14F. There's a requirement that a tree survey be done to see, you know, how many trees there are of greater than 6 inches DBH. You're proposing about 13 acres of tree clearing here. So I think, you know, having an idea of are we dealing with any significant trees, or are these all, you know, successional growth from a former ag field? It's not clear, but a site walk would help determine that. But I think also that the law does require that you submit that tree survey. But again, we can discuss this further, you know, after a site walk, but that's a missing piece of the submission. The landscaping plan was, you did bring it up, it shows what's proposed. There's also a requirement that you show what's existing and what's going to be removed. Again, that's the 13 acres of forest and of wooded area on the site. Skipping down to,
Sorry.
we covered the variances or potential variances, the 3 that we called out as far as non-compliance, the setbacks for the fences, the setbacks for the arrays, and then the 50 acres. I'm looking at comment 30. I'm trying to just move through this pretty quickly right now. So you note that there's 10.64% coverage. There's 35% coverage is the maximum for a tier 3 system. We just weren't clear how you calculated that, because it seems like with the limit of disturbance, it's more like closer to 30, but if you could break that down, that would be helpful for us.
Yeah, we can revisit that.
Okay. On the stream crossing, and this is also under the seeker comments, so we have folks in Natural Resources Department of our firm that they're taking a look at that, not only the wetland delineation and the crossing, but your habitat assessment that you submitted, the bats and the bog turtles and all that. So comments are forthcoming on those. Same with the noise study. We just didn't have enough time to get into it with the holiday and everything. So we'll have a supplemental, we'll have comments on that in a subsequent memo. But it sounds like you're not proposing to do any kind of culvert. You're just going to put the road through that channel. Is that correct?
As it stands, yes, bless
Okay, but that's subject to the Army Corps permitting still.
you. I believe,
The original application mentioned that it was like a nationwide permit. I know they've changed this year, possibly.
Yeah,
Again,
so
my
we ha-
expertise is limited on it. We have folks at the office that are going to opine on that
yeah,
a little bit more, but.
our internal Department of Environmental Affairs is also coordinating right now on that. I don't believe a firm response has been landed on whether culvert's needed. But we can provide any correspondence that we have up to this
I
point.
think it would be
before you-
helpful to have correspondence not only with Army Corps, but DEC, if you've done any, on, just for the board's files. But if there is any kind of nationwide permitting requirement, I mean, that's probably most likely going to be a condition of approval if it gets to that point, because usually the Army Corps wants to see an approved site plan in order to move forward with a permit. But, that's further discussion. So under the visual impact section, this is like comments 38 through 41. As the chairman mentioned, the only the publicly accessible vantage point that we were interested in on the first iteration of this application was that Boyce Park overlook. Technically, under seeker and DEC's guidance for visual impacts, you're supposed to look at publicly accessible vantage points. Even if this is showing a lot of area, it's still something that the public can get to and they can see the site from it.
Sure.
That combined with the new zoning's requirement for photo simulations as a requirement for the planning board's review, I think it would make sense to have that prepared for this.
Okay, and then, sorry, not to derail, but would it make sense for us to also capture vantage point from the Appalachian Trail as well?
Yeah, just to show that
Yeah, if you,
you either see it or you don't, I guess.
Yeah,
It's not as though because you see it,
Yeah.
oh well,
if
sorry.
you take a photo from there and you're obviously, it's not visible, then
Right.
going through with the photo simulation isn't necessary. In this case, we have a pretty good idea that it's visible from Boyce Park. I'm not as familiar with
I just don't know
Appalachian
from
spot.
there if you can see that far west.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just know you can see a nice portion of Wingdale and just south.
Yeah.
I just don't know, and you can see obviously south, east and southwest. I'm just not
Yeah.
sure.
We have a team that specializes in visual impact assessment, so we'll coordinate with them and make sure, A, to look at it, B, provide simulations if we feel that it would be visible
Good time
from
of
that
year, all
vantage
leaves
point.
off, so.
Exactly. Good time for review, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the leaves off now, especially, it's really good to get the photo and try to use that condition as the worst case. And there's no lighting on this site at all, right?
There's none proposed, correct?
So I guess the lighting plan requirement is something that can be waived. On the, we covered the tree clearing. As far as the agricultural stuff, yeah, you did mention that the soils are pretty much all either farmland of statewide importance or prime farmland definition. The solar law has some language about active agricultural land, and I guess the question is, does this meet that definition? I guess that's a question for the owner and for you. But active agricultural land is defined as land used for a farm operation in accordance with ag and markets law, uses of which include production of crops, livestock products, and is further defined by the Town of Dover zoning law within the past 5 years. I think when we went on the site walk in 2022, we saw the condition. It was pretty much an open field. I think there was like a swing there that somebody put up.
Yeah, it was creepy.
Yeah, it was in the middle of nowhere.
Swing in the middle of a
A
field.
wooden
is
swing,
weird.
yeah. It's a hayfield at best. I don't know, it's not active agricultural land by that
I mean,
definition.
yeah, it seemed like the property was half this field and half
Half
just kind of
forested.
scrubby trees.
Yeah.
Maybe it used to be farmland, but
Right.
has grown in.
Yeah, I imagine it probably gets hayed once or twice a year, possibly. I don't know.
To my knowledge, the landowner is not actively farming it, and it's not being.
I mean, when we walked it, we weren't walking through even knee-high grass, so someone's
It
doing
was
something.
maintained.
I was gonna
Yeah.
maybe brush hog.
That's what I'm saying. Someone's doing something.
Right.
Like it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but if it's just, if it's not meeting that definition, it's not getting like an ag exemption, like I don't think we need to worry about
Yeah, it's not
agricultural
in an
land
ag
being
district.
impacted. And it's not in the district, so
No, we don't. That's what I'm saying. I just,
Yeah.
you
just,
could see it was all
again,
grass.
covering
I
the,
mean, like, it doesn't. That's some amazing grass that never grows. Then I mean, I want that on my lawn.
Yeah, me too.
So someone, that's what I'm saying. Someone cut it. I don't know. I don't know if it was for hay or just to cut it. but-
Whatever you can find out.
Yeah.
I'll follow
Just
up.
the
with that.
operation, frequency and what it's, the reason for it. Obviously, it's not agriculture, but what's being done. Yeah, on the seeker, we had some comments on the EAF Part 1, just some editorial stuff. There are, again, with the species,
Are we
this
now?
area.
Sorry. Which-
Go ahead. Oh, I'm down on like 50
Fifty.
now, trying to hit all the highlights.
Good thing you numbered them. You would have run out of letters. 50.
Yeah. Yes, so the listed species here are the bats that we always see, right, and bog turtle because of the wetland that's there, and also monarch butterfly. So they did submit reports. They did have professionals go out and field survey the site for these species. They have recommendations. They have findings. So we're, like I said, our experts are going to provide comment on those, and they're also going to provide comment on the wetland crossing and possible Army Corps involvement.
And it's a northern long-eared bat.
Yes.
Okay.
Northern Indiana bat, northern long-eared bat, and the tricolored bat is a newly listed bat as well. But, for all three of those, the window of tree clearing would be the mitigation, right? The October through March restriction, the winter hibernation period. For bog turtles, it gets a little more fuzzy, they're, and because DEC is going to be involved in this, I assume that they're going to have similar comments. They're going to want to see copies of all the habitat reports as well. So,
Are there bog turtles at the top of a hill?
well, it's a pond complex there. So
I mean, there's a wetland nearby.
they didn't find any in the report that we looked at, but
Okay.
again, it was a phase 1 survey done to the standard. So our folks that do those are going to just take a look at it and see if it meets the standard. That's all.
Understood.
Yep, so we talked about the wetlands, I'm just scrolling down. And then on the noise study, we're also gonna take a look at that, against the town code requirements and provide comments at another time. So yeah, the recommendations were to just discuss this. A good point was raised about the ZBA's involvement in this at all.
Yeah.
A site walk to familiarize the new planning board members with the site would be a good idea. And I think the escrow was pretty much, was
There's an
padded
existing escrow
at
from
the time that they came
2022.
back. So I don't think we need an increase at this point. Yeah. So no referrals, no action really yet. But
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Having heard from our consultants, any members of the planning board have any further comments or questions?
Nothing.
Okay.
At this time.
I mean, Attorney Polidoro, I'm thinking because of this potential ZBA issue, maybe before anybody starts going crazy, really looking any further into this, maybe you should talk to your attorney and we should talk to somebody.
Yeah, I was actually just trying to
Because if
go
you can't go to the ZBA, the way I read the solar law is we have to tell you to modify it or disapprove it.
right.
And then you can and you can take us to court, which just sounds, I mean, that's, we got to just look into it, that's all.
Right.
I'm not saying that's what should happen. I'm saying that's
No.
the way you read it. Yeah, because we
Yeah.
can't approve it, as you know, because you're trying to, right.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So talk to your attorney. We'll talk to somebody.
Yeah, I was trying to pull the adoption documents to see if it said anything.
Right.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
And then,
I mean, I just think you got to have some out. But I guess the town board could say the out is go to court, take us to court. I mean,
Right, I mean, I don't know what the intention
Right.
was by the drafters.
Yeah.
It could be that the town board says, oh, we didn't realize that, let's amend this.
right,
real
we put
quick."
it here, not thinking it because it's special, not that we're trying to not have it in the zoning. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could just be really much of to do about nothing, but okay,
I mean,
we'll figure.
We could fix it
we'll
with an
discuss.
amendment
Right.
rather quickly if that was the intention.
If that was, yeah. We'll discuss offline and, yeah. I just, what I'm saying is I don't want all the
Yeah.
planners and all your people to just start,
yeah,
let's answer this question, let's answer this, and then,
from a
should
procedural
probably-
standpoint,
yeah, just,
that seems first on the list to
Right.
make sure that
yeah, we could.
right, 'cause it seems like it's
variances are
either,
yeah,
right, you're either proceeding or you're not,
right.
or you're proceeding and we're denying you, and then you're
Right.
going
right,
the next step.
Right. what
Okay.
the
I
process
would say,
is.
though, that given the 60 comments, we should
Quite a bit of
increase the
work.
escrow even a little, so we can cover work that's been done and,
Yeah,
Well,
I don't think
it's-
I don't think it's
It's
exhausted. at this
existing, it,
point,
just needs,
but-
it might just need to be replenished.
yeah.
I don't think it needs.
Yeah, right now it's at $11,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's an
that's-
existing escrow from
Yeah,
2
there's
years
an
ago.
existing escrow.
Yeah, it
Okay,
just
so it's
maybe,
not 500.
no, it might
No,
need some
no, no,
replenishment.
no, we raised it,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so we're fine.
Yeah.
I just didn't want Aaron to get.
No, no, no.
I mean, I guess we, we could set up a site visit. I mean, because that doesn't, not much involved there.
We can
Yeah.
set it and always cancel it
Sure.
if we decide it's not needed. But this way, you can do it before it snows. Maybe.
Sure. As far as scheduling that, I can connect. Is Marilyn the best point of contact to coordinate schedules?
Yeah, I
or-
mean, we usually vote on it. Not, we usually agree. We do usually vote on like having the site walk, so it's not like it's just up to me and I decided.
Gotcha.
Okay, when would work? I mean, it's winter. We're not having a site walk after work because it's dark, so it's a Saturday.
Or if there is a day where you regularly hold your meeting, I don't know if folks can cut out of work.
This is when we regularly hold our meeting.
Right. If like an hour or two early, get to the site and then scoot over to your planning board. That
It's
way.
way.
We all
dark
have
at-
full-time
It gets
jobs.
dark at 4 now.
Yeah, we're not. No one's leaving work early to. Sorry.
You don't want to hang out on the swing.
All right.
It's usually a Saturday morning.
December 14th.
14th, because the 7th is out for me and the 21st is out for me. Or maybe early on the 21st would work, but
I'm good with either of those days.
14th or 21st?
14th's fine.
Okay.
I'm not available, but I went on
You
the
were already
previous
there.
one,
Okay.
so I
All right.
don't mind missing it.
All right. 8 a.m. Kind of late for you, Engineer Berger, I know.
Yeah, I have every Saturday morning is going to be tough with my kids' sports stuff right now. But
What about Corey?
Corey can come.
Corey, have
I'll,
any
I'll
kids?
ask her if she's. I've already been there, so
Okay.
I think Corey should come out.
All right. So you should have kids, and you have an excuse.
They're
All right,
older.
so we're saying Saturday, December 14th, 8 a.m. site walk. I'll make the motion, seconded by
Second.
Member Bonner. Discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Where's
Opposed,
the,
say no.
where's the rally point?
At their driveway. Or, no,
We met at the Astor.
we parked at Astor.
parking lot.
Astor.
Yeah.
That would,
That
could
worked out
I
well.
guess. I think they'd probably be okay with that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then fine with the escrow. Yeah, all right, so maybe we'll have some answers by the time of the site walk.
Okay.
We can just
Yeah.
discuss it. and-
I think this will
Yeah.
be step-by-step
Yeah.
process for a little while here. And then intent for lead agency, I would imagine you guys are wanting to wait until there's a little bit more clarity surrounding the variance. Are you comfortable?
Variance and some of the missing
Yeah.
information.
Just, yeah, I think if you
Okay.
have a more complete application, we're going to adopt the schedule for next year in a little, later tonight, so it'll be
Sounds good.
posted on the website tomorrow or very soon, and
Okay.
you can look at it. But it's, we're not changing it. It's still, 19 days before the meeting, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah, so if you want to have if you want to see us in January, you'd have to figure it out soon, I guess.
Sounds like a plan. And then I had one last
But
question.
December 18th would be the cutoff date for the January.
December 18th. Okay.
Yeah, we'll be in communication if we can get things like rounded out quickly and
Right.
but we certainly don't want to rush through it. So
No,
we'll,
but if we have a
we'll give you
sidewalk on the 14th, hopefully both sides have some answers,
Yeah.
and then maybe you just need to have a memo to just, answer some questions.
Sounds
It
good.
might be sufficient enough to just keep moving the process forward here.
Good enough. One question I did have that was included in AKRF's memo was the narrative.
Okay.
We did include a project narrative with our submission. I'm not sure if
It's comment 8, I think.
Yeah, I have 8 or 9.
Yeah.
We did a search for
And
narrative.
9. Yeah, so there's two different things here. First is the town codes, the zoning codes requirement for a narrative against the special permit findings for major projects, which this is subject to. That's 14563B. Usually we ask the applicant to provide a written response to each of those. So it helps the board make their findings for a special use permit, which in this case it's required by for a tier 3 system, it requires special permit approval from the planning board. So that's nothing different. We've always asked for that, so I think we want to see that. So you should take a look at 14563B and the list there, and that's what we're looking for, a narrative about.
okay.
Responding to each of those points. And then the solar law itself also has, requires a narrative that addresses how the proposed project satisfies the criteria set forth in Article 5, General Standards for Solar Energy Systems, which is 11910. So, those are things that as the seeker review proceeds, as the studies that we look at proceed, you'll be able to answer. It's usually something that comes towards the end of the review process, but
Okay.
just be on notice that those are things that we're going to ask for.
Got it. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something needed like.
No, I mean,
Early-
your project description narrative was helpful. It's just that it needs to hit on each one of these
Okay.
code provisions and how you're meeting it or not.
Understood. And yeah, we can certainly provide that. I think maybe a little bit further down the road, but
Okay.
we'll start drafting it up. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for your time. I certainly appreciate it, and yeah, hopefully you're not here too much later. If I could just get your business cards, so that way I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there.
What am I hearing? It sounded like a... Yes, I'm sorry, I want to make something clear. All the correspondence to the planning board needs to go through the secretary.
Correct.
Yes, just so,
As far as the attorney outreach, is it okay if I
You-
have our attorney contact?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm just saying, anything that's like a
Planning
a
board.
public
Submission.
Anything
submission of document, something that, yeah,
Absolutely.
there's no documents that go to our consultants that don't come to us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I just don't have
Yep.
for my records.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Okay. Just X out a lot of stuff here. There we go. Okay. All right, next we have new business, 1965 Route 22, Diggs, Wingdale Yard.
Yes, Chairman, members of the board, advisory panel, good evening. My name is Alvaro Lorraine. I'm with A12 Engineering, representing the applicant for the Wingdale Yard Site Improvements Project. Our intention tonight is to introduce the project, answer some questions you may have, We recognize there is tons of moving parts and complications with this application. We received a very comprehensive memorandum from AKRF. None of the comments came as a surprise. We have tons of work ahead of us to respond to those comments. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions and present the project to you. In essence, what we're proposing is not complicated per se. It's really improvements to an existing site in terms of operational improvements and stormwater management. What is complicated is the history of the site. The site is located at 1965 State Route 22. That is the site. It has historically operated as a contractor material management station. The current owner, my client, purchased the land, I believe, in year 2000 or so. And the existing use, this is a rural zoning district, RU. So historically, the site has operated as a non-conformant with zoning code. The site, the proposal is to improve the site to continue to operate it as a material management for construction, specifically to recycle concrete, crush it, and resell it, and then also screen and process topsoil for construction. So the application specifically proposes to build a loading ramp at the site, build or install a concrete barrier along the western boundary of the site to provide a physical barrier to the wetlands that are adjacent to the site.
And just so everyone knows, so north is to the right, so west is up.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the site, so in addition to the stormwater improvements, we're proposing to install some fencing for security, and then also some clearing to improve the operation of the site. The site generally sits about 5 to 20 feet above the wetland elevation. We have had several meetings with the DEC because the wetland buffer encroaches the operations of the site. We understand that we're going to need a wetlands permit from the DEC to operate the site within the wetland buffer. The DEC was generally amenable to the proposed improvements in understanding that the site is elevated from the wetlands and this physical barrier and the drainage improvements will improve the effluent reaching the wetlands. Currently, the site and historically just drains obviously towards the wetlands, so drainage occurs via overland flow. Down onto the wetlands without any sort of controls. With the physical barrier that we're proposing along the wetland boundary, but at site level, we are proposing a trench drain or collector drain to route all that sheet flow coming from the site into a stormwater pretreatment unit. It's called a hydrodynamic separator that helps retain sediment that's rich on phosphorus and treat the flow before it outfalls onto the wetlands. We also propose a level spreader to control erosion from that discharge.
The night for level spreader. I'm sure you-
I was going to say, this is the existing condition survey. There is a site plan
Yeah, that's,
drawing.
I was about to ask, which
It's under,
document would be the best one for that? Is it progress? Or?
it's the one called Progress Civil Plans?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So we initially had a pre-application meeting earlier this year,
Yes.
just to understand, obviously, tons of agencies involved with the site.
Sheet.
Um,
There we go.
Following that meeting, we heard the concerns with the ecosystem and some critical endangered species in the area. The applicant retained a scientist who did an initial assessment. He visited the site and reviewed the proposed improvements, and he considered that the project has a strong potential to improve the habitat. It clearly is an improvement to what exists, and to what the site has been historically. We encourage the board to please visit the site, walk it, to be familiar with the condition. The concrete barrier that I mentioned previously is proposed as a precast. They call them mafia blocks, these precast concrete blocks that can be stacked.
Yes.
And that is to minimize also disturbance. The site can be, so sub-base can be prepped, and these blocks can be set in place. We, as I mentioned previously, from a KRF memo, review memorandum, we understand there's some requirements on setbacks. We hope that we can work through this process and really take advantage of this opportunity to improve the site. We're open to suggestions from the board, landscaping, screening. The site has been operating sort of freely, for a number of years. This is really an opportunity to formalize it and tighten it up.
Okay. Anything further from this document you wanted to point out?
No, this is early in the process. I recognize we're going to be working diligently to address AKRF comments.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a request for the board. One of the comments from AKRF is to solicit a determination from the building department on the existing non-conformance use of the site. That is something that will help us sort of devise the path forward, and whether or not we agree this is a pre-existing non-conforming use. In addition to that, we had prepared a short EAF from AKRF memorandum. I believe the project falls into the definition of a major project. I did have a question with the language. The major definition falls because of does it apply because the use is greater than 10,000 square feet, or because of the alteration is greater than 10,000 square feet?
Well, so should we get into
Go ahead,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
You just, answer that, yeah.
Sure. So the major project, per the code, one of the thresholds is alteration and active use of 10,000 square feet of land, with or without structures. So I think because you're proposing improvements, to an area that's over 10,000 square feet, I mean, in your application you said 2 acres of disturbance. So I just took that number and went with
Understood.
the fact that it's
Yeah.
greater than 10,000 square feet. So, but if you want to clarify, or, you know, maybe if you want to push back on that, we just need to know.
Do you think you have less
Yeah,
than a quarter acre
yeah.
of disturbance?
Correct. I think we definitely need to clarify that. It's not. That's why I wanted to ask the question, just to clarify, and for the record, so the lot size is 7 acres. The proposed disturbance is 0.9 acres. But we'll clearly depict that on the plans and provide clarification.
9.9 is greater than 10.
So 0.9 acres would be around 36,000 square feet.
Correct.
So it's still
So-
over the 10, yeah.
So, yeah, so that would trigger the major project definition because the story is, okay,
Yeah,
understood.
that's just a Dover code thing. But and it
Okay.
requires the full EAF for a major project, site plan review. which this would
Understood.
fall under. Doesn't mean it's a type 1 action, but
Right.
we require that form to be filled out.
Mm-hmm. Understood, no problem.
Okay. So, all right, just so again, so everybody understands where we're looking, this is on Route 22, just a little ways north of Pleasant Ridge Road. It's across from the northern end of Rural Avenue, not the southern end of Rural Avenue. And it's immediately north of the Harlem Valley Transfer Station.
Where Savarese was.
And then, let's see, now there's discussion of what has happened there historically. So, I'm not going to go back to 1936.
Yeah, we did this
There you
too,
go.
and it looks like, you know, back to the 1980s,
So let's see.
which is the,
In the 70s, those structures were actually built, came in.
Yeah, so in 1980, you could see certainly the two major structures. I'll get a little closer just so we can get a
the
little.
question is, what was the use, right?
Right. That is certainly part of the question. 1970,
There's something.
something was there.
One of
Maybe
the
just the
structures.
one building.
The-
They don't always
yeah,
line
the-
up exactly, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a phase 1
Actually, yeah.
ESA for this?
Something there.
It does look
So-
like something's there.
So the
It could be Bigfoot, we
the
don't
applicant,
know.
by the way,
We can get to it.
sure, Nicolas
No,
here,
the-
the owner of the lot, is here with us tonight. He he had foiled documents and records on the property before the purchase. I don't think a formal phase 1 was actually done.
Okay.
So do you have documents
That was my question.
getting to, you know, what was being done in the, we can see there's the two main structures are there in 1980, so at some point before 1999, I think that's the
cutoff,
the
yeah, yeah.
magical year for Dover. You know, because, you know, something could be, like, I could start doing something on my property today, and next year I could come and say, oh, it's pre-existing and it's not conforming, but that's not really what that means. Like,
Right.
So,
Well, Sam
Yeah.
Reese was there prior, so we had mentioned that, and he was
Right.
running trucks and now there's soil, materials, stockpiles, and things like that. You know, which goes back to, I think, probably the 90s, you know.
Yeah.
Excuse
okay,
me.
Yeah,
sorry,
I-
you just have to
I-
be at the
I-
microphone to speak. Thank you. No worries.
I think that there would be certainly enough records. We could share back the FOIL results, but you know these records came from the building department. I'm sure they'd be able to
Right.
verify the use.
That would be helpful, yeah.
And that's what your memo
Yeah, it's comment
goes to.
2, pretty much.
So just to be clear, you would like us to send back the FOIL results
Well, I
for
think
review,
what
or
we would
just
want to do it, formally, the planning board can request that the building department provide the interpretation of the use.
okay?
They can ask that of them tonight.
Understood. Thank you.
Should we get into those?
I mean, we could do that right now.
Yeah, so, okay.
I'm saying we could do that right now. So,
Oh. It was it actually was, it should have been part of the recommendations at the end. I left that out, but that's definitely,
Alright,
it's,
alright.
comment 2 is covering that question.
all right. So, I need a motion to request the Town of Dover Building Department to give the planning board interpretation with regard to the zoning code and the non-conforming use of this property.
So moved.
Motion made by member Palmer, seconded by
Second.
member Rahman. Discussion? I think what I said covers it.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. The motion passes 4-0 with 3 absences. Okay, let's just go through everybody else and then we'll get to the mail. So, just the only other thing I really had was, so if you look at the aerial axis currently, so it looks like there's maybe there like so
Connectivity or something?
yeah, like there's some connectivity between the two parcels, or there's stuff that's really it's on one property and the other. I know the parcel lines aren't exact, but
Yeah.
it's part of what you're looking to do. Going to,
Nothing to do with
I mean, what I mean, you're going to clean that up, or you're going to have
There will be a
fencing or-
physical fence,
Okay.
and these the physical barrier, the concrete barrier, will
Right.
extend to that adjacent lot along the property line.
Right. I guess I'm trying to.
There won't
see.
be real access between the lots.
It's a little more to the that side and that side.
We need to work on this layout based on some of AKRF comments. Those storage containers, we're going to be looking to moving them. We certainly would like to avoid any variances if we can.
Right. So it looks like this here is going to be in the same space as this,
More or less, yes.
more or less, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I'm just trying to get a
That
sense
is
of.
correct.
Okay. And so again, there's no longer going to be a connection between the two properties.
No.
Even now, it looks like there's stuff kind of in the way, but okay.
Currently, you could drive through maybe.
Right, 'cause
back
I
in
think
the
when we had
day.
the pre-application meeting, it looked like, you know, you could try to, like, go from your property around to, like, the house that's on that property, and then,
Right.
like, and then out to 22.
not now.
Not now, okay, I'm saying, like, when we,
No.
whatever.
Prior to me owning it, yes. but
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm saying. Like, we looked at something months and months ago, and it looked like you could do that, so that's out, okay. Okay, any other, let's see, Member Palmer?
No comment.
Member Rahman?
No.
Member Sador? No. Okay. Engineer Berger?
You mentioned it's under an acre, so you don't need a stormwater permit from DEC, but you are over half an acre, so you will need to be filing for Chapter 65.
Understood.
So you're going to be using the hydrodynamic separator, but for the board, that really doesn't treat stormwater. It's just centrifugally setting the water fast and settling out, which is good, but it's not really a true treatment. And the level spreader, again, is to slow down the water as it gets into the wetland. That doesn't really treat either then. It does provide a little bit of filtering through the grass and some infiltration. But given the nature of the site, are you planning on putting some type of bioretention or gravel filter prior to maybe the level spreader, which, you know, DEC could recommend? If you over an acre, you would do it, just like pea gravel
Yes.
diaphragm, just so
Yeah.
that the water going in does have some more treatment prior to going to the level spreader.
We can absolutely look into that. We currently propose like a collector drain, French drain, but we didn't really factor any infiltration that could happen. You know, we'll look into see if it makes sense after we do percolation tests.
Okay.
But we may also look into for treatment, perhaps a proprietary practice, a jellyfish,
they're
or one
fine.
of those.
That's
just for ease of maintenance as well.
Again, it's not for the board, they're not required under DEC, but our Chapter 65 does say that if there's a potential for stormwater pollution, that some practice or some treatment should be proposed. It doesn't have specific guidelines like DEC, so it's more what's commonly done. So those practices proposed are acceptable.
Okay.
Those are my comments.
Gotcha, thanks. Okay. And, I mean, I guess we can surmise from the wetland here and the proximity, the closeness of the topo lines here, this is probably a lot of, from decades and decades ago, a lot of just kind of landfill that probably went in, probably before there was regulations against filling in wetlands like that, I would think. Yeah. Okay. But that wouldn't give us a sense really of what the composition of the ground, I mean, it could be gravel, soil, like, it could be
Probably
Yeah.
collection of
just whatever.
block, some
Yeah.
concrete,
Okay.
some gravel.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Engineer Berger. Attorney Polidoro?
My comments were mostly incorporated into the memo. The biggest concern at this point is the non-conforming use status
Right.
before we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Planner Werner?
Sure. So the first comment was about the interconnection with the transfer station. I think that was answered, that they're
Mhm.
going to have a fence up and there's no relationship. Second one was about the referral to the building department, which you've done. And the third one also was just assuming that that it does meet the definition of a non-conforming use. This is just to provide, this should only need site plan. It shouldn't need a special use permit based on the code.
Right.
4 covers the major project question and the full EAF requirement. Number 5 was asking about, actually, it's just noting that it needs county referral because it's on Route 22, so because it's a site plan, it's subject to GML 239M, so when it's ready to be referred, the county would have 30 days to respond. 6 was asking about DOT. I don't think there's any change proposed to the driveway, but I don't know if as part of this permitting that you're doing with DEC, if they've mentioned anything about this, or if you need a permit
Yeah,
from DOT for the access?
When we had our consultants meeting, just in preparation for this meeting, I was wondering if the DOT might be looking at the proximity of Rural Avenue to your driveway and some sightline issues, trucks turning in and out, so.
Yeah, that may shake out as part of the the joint review, the secret, but we're looking to improve the area, so we do expect to deal with DOT and
Okay.
comply with their
So
permits.
highway work permit. And right now, because right now you have truck traffic going in and out, and you're saying, I think the application said that it was pretty much going to be similar with the project improvements,
Correct.
like 50 trucks a week or something like that?
That is correct. So we anticipate, based on the proposal, although we're planning to clear an area north, that is really for material management. It's not a substantial area. The proposal is not really to increase the corn operation, although with an improved site, there will be probably an increase in business. But historically, based on historical truck counts, we anticipate about 50 to 80 trucks max per week in and out.
Operating 5-6 days a week? 5, okay.
And
So it's,
Saturday would be like just inside yard work, maybe.
Right.
Maintenance.
so
So,
10 to
yeah.
15, 10 to 16 trucks a day?
Yeah, if that, it's,
Okay. No, we're trying to understand,
Yeah.
like, it's not like truck,
no.
Truck,
no,
truck.
I don't, no.
truck. Right, it could be on average 1 every half hour at most,
Something like
but it might be 4 in 1 hour and not 1 for another hour, and it's, okay, all right.
Okay, so I think DOT is going to get this referred anyway, like as part of the SECRO, so they can comment about that.
Right. I mean, is there an existing driveway?
I don't know. Yeah, is there an existing permit with DOT? Do you know of?
I haven't foiled any records with DOT just yet. I assume there is, because this site has been
Yeah.
in place forever. But we'll,
Oh, yeah, that might not be if it's
yeah, we'll go through
it's
the
in
most.
place forever. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
7 is just about the Chapter 65, and Joe did touch on that already. And I defer to him about the intricacies of the plan for stormwater.
Right.
The site is mapped in the 100-year floodplain. I think we're out of the floodplain as far as where the improvements that are existing and proposed. I think it would be helpful to have that line on the site plan, just to
Understood.
confirm that. I don't think ARB is applicable here for the town because the structures aren't changing.
Right.
And a
Correct.
site walk.
Yeah.
No changes to the buildings whatsoever, or lighting, for that matter. We'll make that clear on the submittal as well.
And, yeah, so a site walk, again, would be a good idea for this.
Mhm.
Onto the site plan itself, we just noticed the survey has the Olivet property
Oh, yeah.
incorrectly labeled, just something to correct. That's number 11.
Mm-hmm.
Then the question came up about the well that's shown. So there's an existing well close to one of the buildings that's used just for, I assume, like dust control and operational. There's no bathrooms on the site, and there's none proposed, right?
Correct.
Your application mentioned up to 8 staff at a time, and then they would be using portable facilities.
Right. It's not up to us, but it was discussed that
Yeah, you want to?
you would need a,
Health
you
department?
explain that, Engineer Berger, about a potential waiver.
Yeah, the health department may require you to have a subsurface system because you have full-time employees.
I'd be willing to do the improvement.
Well, that's something, we're not, this board and the town is not making, it's just, other
Right, that's what,
agencies-
yeah, it's not,
Just making you aware of other agency approvals.
but also, if that were the case, then you'd have to incorporate that into your, into the plan.
Un-
Yeah.
Understood. Well,
And I can also imagine there must be some regular cost of porta potties and,
Oh, yeah.
If you built a-
So it'd be improvement.
Yeah.
It'd be cheaper to have a.
right, you might just build your own thing that's cheaper over 20 years. Yeah,
Long haul.
yeah, right.
It's a very small system for 8
And-
people. It's like almost nothing.
I agree. I mean, I would think that would come up from DOH as part of their review once referred to them, right?
Not always. They're going to be looking towards seeker. They may not get to their engineer. So
Okay.
something we would, it's possibly.
Right, yeah, the concern.
I can
Yeah.
inquire directly. That's why I was asking, but not a problem.
Yeah, the concern for you is that if we approve the project without a septic system and then you go ahead with everything you're doing, they could come back 6 months or a year later and be like, wait, you need a septic system,
Yeah.
and then you got to come back to us, and then so we're just kind of giving you a heads up, like you might want to really think this through.
Yeah, I would contact Tanya Clark
Yeah.
at the health department, who's in charge, to get that determination.
Understood. No problem.
Yeah, I mean, because usually porta potties are for temporary things,
Yeah,
you know,
correct.
carnivals, construction sites. Yeah, not an ongoing. Right.
That was the situation I put it.
No, yeah, right. No, again,
I agree it is.
yeah, no one's.
So work sites, I think, are supposed to have like a water station
Correct,
safety,
yeah.
so.
That one has a particular washing station. inside
Okay.
it.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
So there was also a well shown on the grading plan that was up like towards the slope. I don't know if that was a mistake on the plan or that's
That was a
proposed.
CAD error.
Floater?
They
Okay.
was- Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's no.
All right,
Yes.
so no new wells. The existing
CAD
well.
draft.
Okay,
IDOT error.
thanks for the clarification.
Okay.
So then as far as the site plan requirements, the only things that are really missing, and again, these could be waived because of what's happening here, is like a lighting plan. I don't think anything's changing with that, so it might not be necessary. And then signage, I don't know if you're proposing anything new. I don't know what's out there currently.
Yeah, we'll clarify, but
And the landscaping plan, I mean, you're not really proposing to
Maybe
do.
we just want to add screening just
Mhm.
for the purposes of town.
Yeah.
If you're gonna if you're proposing screening, it should be shown on the plan.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, what would be I guess the preference, I would think maybe along Route 22, that'd be the main
Yeah.
goal of screening?
Driving by now, you can see right into the site. I
Yeah,
know
you-
that for a
yeah.
fact. But
Because it slopes down. Okay, no
Right.
problem.
because you're going to have parking there, right? Trucks parking right close to the road, and I think that's a good idea. If you're willing to do that, we should see it as part of the site plan set.
Okay.
Exactly what's proposed. There was so on the, I guess it's the northeast corner, the Taylor Oil shed that's there. Is that something that's leased
So,
currently?
correct, there was a lease in place prior to purchasing it, I had to carry a lease on the purchased property.
Okay. So it's not affiliated with your operation at all?
No.
It's on your property, but
Yeah,
not
it's
your-
on the
okay.
property, but it doesn't have
Right.
anything to do with my, we purchase oil from Taylor, but we don't
Mhm.
touch the facility itself. And I don't know too much about it besides, when
Yeah.
I purchased it, it was there, and there is filings, I guess, 78 or 76 or 78 is the filings for it or something.
it could be just another non-conforming.
If it dates back that
Use,
far, it's,
right.
yeah, it's because it's not complying with setbacks, so it's,
Is it still in use?
Yeah. yeah.
There's a filing number for it and everything, the foils. When we send the foils, you'll see all the information.
It's fenced off too and separate from your other.
Correct,
Mhm.
yeah.
Part of the
there's a
site.
fence there, yeah.
Do you know what, is it just used for like folks to get like propane tanks or?
I
is
believe
it-
that Taylor uses it as like an alternate state transfer station for their operation.
Okay.
They maintain it and keep up the record.
Says It says something on it.
Yeah.
I have.
Says thank you for 90 years of
That's
business.
I have special insurance for the lease and all that, the coverage for,
Mm-hmm.
stuff if there's ever a spill, right, so you have to have that kind of environment.
The,
I mean, it might just be a giant tank and it has the structure around it, so you don't see a giant
Well, that's
tank.
what it's,
but-
it is an internal tank with a, exterior tank as a catch-all, so if that ever leaked.
If it, you're right, it would catch, yeah,
And
sure.
then they built the building over it.
Right.
so it keeps the water out of it.
Nicola,
I mean-
the lease runs through, you know, until when?
I'm not sure the exact drop dead date, I have to, Linda's pulling those records, and also in the foils, I did see, it does give the description of the tank, the size, the containment and whatnot.
Okay.
In the foils, so we can get you
Cool.
that.
So yeah, as you're driving south, you're going like, yeah, you're going like down a slight hill, right?
Yeah.
As you drive south along here, and then yeah, you can look over to it.
Right,
Kinda jump
screening
past it.
there, way along the hillside.
It could be a little more, yeah, I mean, you have a berm there already and you
Right.
could just supplement that with more plantings.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like more, just trees like
Evergreens.
that or
Sticking
something.
the trees and the plantings along the edge, so.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
like that.
Yeah. All right, moving on. So 15, Just- site plan set, usually we ask for an area and bulk table, just so it's clear about showing all the setback requirements, all the coverage requirements, and how you're either complying or not complying, just a standard thing that should be on the site plan.
Understood.
Helps us.
We'll
Um,
provide.
Yeah, highlighting the pre-existing non-conforming conditions that are to be. The shipping containers, technically those are structures, if you look at the code definition.
Right.
Maybe we could ask for interpretation on that, but I think it's pretty clear.
I think we had another project treat it.
I don't remember it.
It
but-
was it'll come to me, where we had them put it on the site plan at least, and we tried to
But do they have to?
hide it.
Do they have to?
Paint, I think we made them paint it like a earth color, so that it
I don't
blended.
remember that.
Yeah. And what,
But what about the site? What about the setback?
Setbacks.
I don't know if it was an issue that time.
Right, it might not have been.
As a
an issue.
definition, a setback applies to structures.
Right, and it is. a
This is
structure.
definitely a structure. I mean, storage bin is
Yeah, as it's
listed.
as structure is defined,
Yeah.
it's a structure.
understood. And we'll look into the layout for sure.
Okay,
What's the side yard setback in this
30.
zone?
30.
30. So, and that's 87.
Yeah.
Could move them over.
How long are the Connex boxes?
20 to 40, depending on.
Okay. So right, if all of these were just
Yeah, you just-
here,
Yeah.
then you'd probably meet it.
Well, yeah, we're going to look.
Yeah, look at it. Just look at what.
On the parking, it looks like there's plenty of room, and, you know, you're showing an area that's close to 22 that, where you're going to have the parking, and you can see some there now. Usually even though you're not going to pave it and stripe it, just, it would be helpful on the site plan to show, you know, approximately how many vehicles you can fit there, based on the the standard dimension of a spot for a truck or standard vehicles.
Okay, no problem. No need to show bumpers, tire bumpers, or anything like that. Just the proof of concept and the layout, how they would be parked,
Yeah.
access. Okay,
Yeah, on
understood.
paper. It's not necessarily going to be what you,
Right, we're not asking to create like an employee parking
Right.
area.
No.
and,
Understood.
just kind of show that you can.
We'll
how
show the
many you can
layout,
fit.
the aisle,
There's no
in and out.
provisional parking standard in the code for this use.
Right.
So we're just kind of like taking your word for how many vehicles you need or how many spaces
Yeah.
you need, and the board can look at that and see if they agree, but, yeah.
Understood.
All right, on the wetlands, we talked about that a little bit, but I guess taking a step back a little too, like you're trying to get a permit for a recycling facility from DEC, right? That's part
Yes.
of this, and that's facilitating you coming in to get a site plan approved, because they won't give you the permit without that?
It's a little bit of a catch-20. It's, you know, the chicken or the egg dilemma. So we've spoken to DC. They fairly recently ruled out new regulations, and this facility would be registered with them to operate as a recycling facility. That would put the facility under the scrutiny for the duration of the permit. But we feel we should first go through this process, and then once we have a site plan, an improved site plan concept that's acceptable to the town, then go through the permitting with them.
What materials are you looking to recycle?
It's concrete.
Concrete.
That would be strictly concrete and then screening topsoil.
Okay.
Not
So-
mixed asphalt, nothing like that.
Okay.
There's just different variations now, very strict.
But concrete coming from,
The sidewalks, I do like a lot of sidewalks for school districts and things like that, so
Right.
it would be from projects like that. And that's generally the bulk of our concrete is sidewalk removal.
right. What do we have, there's something in the zoning about C&D material coming from outside of town, isn't there?
Yeah, so the definition, the DEC permit that we'll eventually apply for is very restrictive of the type of material. So, for example, anything that would fall under C&D, like brick, asphalt, millings, is not allowed. This is clean, reinforced concrete that's crushed. The steel is separated, sold as scrapped, and then crushed and resold.
Okay. So what you're getting, so you had the wetlands delineated in 2023 by DEC. Have they been asking about, concerns about bog turtles, or wanting to see a phase 1 bog turtle study for them to sign off on this?
No,
No?
they didn't mention that concern. The whole discussion was really revolving around the wetlands.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Uh,
habitat potentially for that species, and it's the Great Swamp Complex in the town, which is a critical environmental area. So I would assume that when this gets referred to them, because we would refer to them as an involved agency
Mhm.
because they're permitting something, that they would come back with that comment. But if a professional from their office was already out there, seems like they should.
Understood. Yeah,
should
so I would have thought the same thing. They never brought up in our discussions the endangered species. Our scientist did look into that as part of his review, but we'll work with
Yeah, I
DC
saw the
and-
letter from your consultant, but it wasn't like a formal, like a phase 1
Yeah, right.
assessment that like the DEC would ask for a project near a wetland that could have it.
You may want to look into our experience in Dover when we went for some of our permits here.
Mhm.
We would get the wetland delineated, and the DEC person wouldn't go into it. And then as we proceeded during our normal permit, another DEC person would come out, and then they wanted us to have the bog turtle study.
assessment. They wouldn't do it themselves.
Yeah, this is for
Yeah.
town of Dover, and the DEC individual who looks at the bog turtle was out and still asked the town of Dover to hire a consultant to do what they saw was okay. So they're not gonna let you not do it.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think, I have a hunch that when we send this to them, we will get the letter back that says they want more information on it, on that particular thing. And Frogs, Friends of the Great Swamp, has an active presence in town and cares about that resource, and they're probably going to be interested too. I think we flag them as an interested agency just because of the proximity to the land that they are familiar with. So that's that. A couple of notes about the aquifer protection overlay and the floodplain overlay. It's standard just to have those on the site plans notes. We have the recommended referrals list in 21. I think we've touched on all of these. Also listed just because I feel like, in looking at the mapping, the wetlands are joint. There's like federal and state.
Mm-hmm.
Is there joint permitting with DEC happening?
Right, so I don't foresee Army Corps because we're really not encroaching the wetlands itself.
Okay.
So, I do foresee, obviously, securing a wetlands permit, or having to secure a wetlands permit from DEC.
You only work in the buffer.
Correct, not in the wetlands, so.
So then onto the seeker section. So again, the full EAF is needed. Right now you have the short form. Definitely do the full form and do it with the mapper application, which the link is provided.
Mhm.
That'll help fill out some of those predetermined fields for you. And it's going to hit the things like the bats and the bog turtles and things like that for the species. The critical environmental area is going to be checked yes, because the Great Swamp is one. And then two other things that are in here, the last comment. So we've had other projects, in close proximity to this resource, and again, we have like a kind of an industrial kind of use happening. The historic use of the property is going to be figured out from the building department, but a phase 1 ESA could also help a lot in determining if like there's actual recognized environmental condition that we need to worry about. Because if there's not, we won't really need to get into any kind of a phase 2 requirement. It might be a good idea to think about having a phase 1 on record. It's something that the planning board has to. My understanding from recycled concrete is, concrete usually doesn't have the things that are cause for concern, like petroleum compounds and things like that could cause an issue with subsurface contamination. But there is a use of, trucks have been using this site, trucks have been parked there. We're not really sure what use happened in the 70s and 80s, like definitively. And a phase 1, I understand you're doing a foil, but a phase 1 would really be would firm up your record better too, especially with dealing with potential interest from the frogs and other folks in town.
I mean, I'm just going to say the concern, unfortunately, phase 1 wasn't done when the property was acquired. It has a long history, before it was purchased. I guess now, do we really want to get into investigating, right, the historical quality of the soils? I think the general idea is to improve what's there. Going back to a phase 1, I think if we can avoid that, that'd be the preference. A phase 1 would maybe commissioned down the road if the property's sold. The current owner is still responsible. But I guess that's the concern, because unfortunately there isn't one available currently.
Right, but a transaction doesn't always trigger one. You can get one anytime, and I think if there was one done when you said the purchase happened around 2000, it would be old anyway. It would need to be more recent. So I don't know. I feel for the hazardous materials, human health aspect of seeker, given where this is and the interest that we've had from other projects in the same adjacency to the resource, it's something to think about. So,
Possibly, yeah. I mean, maybe my thinking was maybe we look at we do the site walk, and that might further inform us, you know, by having feet on the ground.
It's ultimately the board's call. I mean, it's just,
Right. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just, yeah.
the way this comment's worded is like, you know, it was not necessarily requiring a phase 2, but a phase 1 ESA that has no recs would go a long way to
Mhm.
just close the door on that topic altogether.
Sure.
Understood.
Okay.
And then the other issue was about noise, and the crusher that's shown, is that something that's currently happening, or is that a new use? Wasn't clear, but again, if it's something the board can ask for, you know, if you're doing rock crushing, is it gonna satisfy the town code noise requirements? Are there sensitive receptors nearby? Do we have specs for the crusher, like how loud it gets, things like that can be provided to maybe inform that a little bit better?
And there is a house to the north.
Mm-hmm. We'll provide that information.
Is it happening now, or is it something that you're going to do?
No, but that crusher has operated before.
The one that we had run there was a rented unit, so I don't own, so it's rent.
It becomes a question of decibels at the property line.
Yes.
Yeah.
145, 40 in the code has the requirements for how noise levels at the property line, and if you have, some of these crushers have, I think, have specs about, you
Yeah.
know, how loud they can get.
They do, and we'll provide information.
Okay.
Right.
All right. That's it for the comments. I
And
think-
we know the railroad goes right behind your property, and it's very loud. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
know, but I'm just, we can't make the MTA make their trains quieter, so.
Right. But
Right, and Route 22 is there.
stationary source of
Yeah,
noise that
right.
is going to be increased, more permanent than what's happening now, I think is important to get a handle on that.
Because it's a major project, this will require a
Public hearing.
requires a public hearing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, you know, something that you might want to consider is, you know, outreach to people who are, live near the property to see like,
Mhm.
hey, any problems, anything I should know about, you know.
So we have recommendations for a site walk in the near future would be fine. And then the escrow, increasing it, you know, this is a little bit of a complex application. So increasing it up to 10,000 from what it is now, I think is a good start.
Understood.
All right. Thank you, Planner Warner. Members of the planning board, having heard from our consultants, anything further you'd like to
No further comment.
add, ask? Okay. Right, so let's, setting a site walk. We're looking to get together on Saturday, December 14th. 14th?
14.
Right,
That might be a good day to have a
Mm.
site walk there.
14th.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Does that not work?
I'm away, yeah.
You're away.
This month, so that's for me. So
Yeah, okay.
That's like maybe after the new year.
All right.
We set up dates, maybe we'll look at your guys' calendar. You know.
Yeah,
Do we-
We'll go from there.
With the
20, are you
secretary?
back to 21st?
Or,
21st of December.
Of December, yeah.
I'm kind of this month.
You're just gone.
Yeah, my
Okay.
daughter's out of state, and I'm kind of back and forth.
No, understood, understood. So we're looking at January. Okay. We have a meeting we likely have a meeting January 6th, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe what we can do is just set the site walk on January 6th. You know, just communicate maybe with our secretary, like, hey, here's some dates that work for us.
Sure.
Again, like you were here earlier when we were discussing the sidewalk for the other project, right?
Mhm.
So you heard, it's basically Saturday mornings is when we do site walks in the winter. So I guess just let Secretary Van Mellen know if any Saturdays that work for you, you know, the
give a
10th,
couple
I'm
options.
sorry, the 11th, the 18th, or the 25th of January. And then we could discuss that on the 6th of January to have a
Thank you.
site walk.
So, I guess just one quick question about procedurally. So we're going to get to work in a response and some revisions to the plans. do we get feedback after the sidewalk, during the sidewalk? It'd be great to incorporate that feedback into our next resubmittal.
Yeah, I mean, notice, on the site walk,
Okay.
there might be a majority of planning board members, but we're never together in any way on the site walk to discuss, decide,
Okay.
think about anything.
So we'll do it
but
live.
you might get, as we walk around, you might hear some of us say like, "Oh, look at that," or
Understood.
yeah. So I guess a bit of what maybe we're asking the ZBA to do in the other project. So yeah, I mean, it's once we're on the site walk, sometimes things that seem unclear clear up quickly, and you're like, "Oh,
Sure.
that's not a big deal," or "Oh, that is a big deal," and then
The board does discuss the site walk at their next meeting.
yeah, and we discuss the site walk at the next meeting.
Yeah.
It's very
No, I
it's
like
very
the format.
transparent.
But you could also just,
If,
like, the
What we-
submission deadline for that January 6th meeting is coming up pretty quick, too.
yeah, well,
Right.
So you would maybe be able to, in a position to submit for a meeting that's the second meeting in January or the first meeting in February, based on the site walk feedback.
that's
is there
where
only
I
one
was-
meeting in January because of the holiday.
Have a
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
holiday.
that was what I was hoping we could do.
December
Uh,
18th.
Hear you at the sidewalk.
Right.
At that point, we'll have these pretty advanced, and then we submit shortly after.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so if on the 6th, we would likely meet for any number of projects, we could also have a vote on the site walk. That would mean, so when's the meeting in February? Is February 3rd?
February 3rd,
February 3rd.
So the deadline for that is the
January 15th.
January 15th. Okay. Close. Okay. We could, yeah, we can,
Excellent. That works.
yeah, we'll figure something out, I think.
Thank you. That.
It might be on January 6th. Maybe we have a little bit more of a discussion on this project, even though there's nothing new, just because of the site walk and, yeah.
Mm.
We'll think about that. Because, yeah, it just kind of, in the winter with the holidays, it's kind of like if we don't see you on January 6th, and then you miss, we don't have the site walk till January 18th, and you miss the deadline for the February meeting, and then it's March. We don't want to we're really trying not to hold people up. But at the same time, us and the consultants do need sufficient time to review things. If you
Of
send
course.
us a 20-page document the day before the meeting, we didn't read it. So.
No, yeah. I think we have a good timeline for resubmittal.
All right. All right, so we'll consider citing this, if you could put on the agenda for the January meeting that we're going to vote on a site walk. Maybe we'll have a further discussion on this project. Motion to increase the escrow to $10,000. Motion made by Member Sador, seconded by Member Roman. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay, that passes 4-0 with 3 absences. Anything further, you believe, for us?
No, thank you. That
I mean, I think we've kind of covered everything for now.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Okay. Thank you.
I appreciate everybody's time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, next on the agenda is appointment of planning board consultants and secretary for 2025. Resolution appointing secretary to the planning board, whereas pursuant to section 271, subsection 2 of the town law, the planning board is authorized to employ experts, clerks, and a secretary, and to provide for such other expenses as may be necessary and proper. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board of the town of Ober does hereby appoint Marilyn Van Millen as secretary of the planning board for the year 2025. This resolution is being offered by myself, seconded by
Second.
Member Sador. All those in favor Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a resolution. Is the secretary please call the roll?
Member Sador?
Aye.
Member Roman?
Aye.
Member Palmer?
Aye.
Chairman Cortine?
Aye. That resolution passes by a vote of 4-0 with 3 absences. Resolution appointing attorneys to the planning board, whereas pursuant to section 271, section 2 of the town law, the planning board is authorized to employ experts, clerks, and a secretary, and to provide for such other expenses as may be necessary and proper. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board of the town of Dover does hereby appoint Rodenhausen, Shaw, and Polidoro LLP, Victoria L. Polidoro, Esquire, as attorneys to the planning board for the year 2025, and authorizes the chair to execute the retainer agreement on file with the planning board secretary. This resolution is being offered by myself, seconded by
Second.
Member Palmer. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, resolution appointing attorneys to the planning board. Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Sador?
Aye.
Member Roman?
Aye.
Member Palmer?
Aye.
Chairman Cortine?
Aye. Resolution is adopted 4-0 with 3 absences. Resolution appointing a planning consultant to the planning board, whereas pursuant to section 271, subsection 2 of the town law, the planning board is authorized to employ experts, clerks, and a secretary, and provide for such other expenses as may be necessary and proper, and therefore be it resolved that the planning board of the town of Dover does hereby appoint AKRF Inc. as planners to the planning board for the year 2025, subject to the terms and conditions of AKRF's contract with the town of Dover. This resolution is being offered by myself, seconded by
Second.
Member Roman. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Sador?
Aye.
Member Roman?
Aye.
Member Palmer?
Aye.
Member Cortine?
Aye. Resolution is adopted 4-0 with 3 absences. Okay. Resolution appointing engineer to the planning board, whereas pursuant to section 271, subsection 2 of the town law, the planning board is authorized to employ experts, clerks, and a secretary, and to provide for such other expenses as may be necessary and proper. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board of the town of Dover does hereby appoint Berger Engineering and Surveying, Joseph Berger, LSPE, as engineers to the planning board for the year 2025, and authorizes the chair to execute the retainer agreement on file with the planning board secretary. This resolution is being offered by myself, seconded by Member Sador. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, resolution appointing engineer to the planning board. Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Sador?
Aye.
Member Roman?
Aye.
Member Palmer?
Aye.
Chairman Cortine?
Aye. This resolution is thereupon adopted, 4-0 with 3 absences. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Approval of the 2025 meeting and deadline schedule. So, thank you, Secretary Van Millen, for putting this together. We're not looking to change the meeting dates. Still the first and third Mondays of the month. Still have the deadlines being 19 days before, as we've had now for, it's probably, might end up being the 3rd year like that, I think.
Could be.
Okay, so what that means is that we'll have a meeting in January, a meeting in February, 2 in March, 2 in April, 2 in May, 2 in June, 2 in July, 2 in August, 1 in September, 2 in October, 1 in November, and 2 in December, provided that there's actually business before the planning board. And along that vein, after this resolution is done, I'll announce that there is no meeting in 2 weeks because there's no business. So this will just be a motion to accept the motion to approve the 2025 meeting and deadline schedule. But does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns?
Nothing.
Okay, so need a motion to approve the 2025 meeting and deadline schedule. Motion made by
So moved.
Member Palmer, seconded by Member Roman. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the approval of the 2025 meeting and deadline schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Everybody say no. Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes 4-0 with 3 absences. All right. So, as I just said, and I'll make it official now, as there is no business before the planning board 2 weeks from now, because nothing new has come in by the deadline of November 27th, the meeting for December 16th is canceled. Our next meeting will be January 6th. The deadline for that is December 18th. And then following that will be a meeting on February 3rd with a deadline of January 15th. Is there any further business before the planning board? Seeing no further business before this planning board, I'll make a motion to adjourn, seconded by
Second.
Member Sador. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.